Chapter 510. This is the ancestors' tomb. Zhou Yi and Yin Ruyu stood on a cliff and looked down at the cold and dark deep pool below. Yin Ruyu's pretty face had a touch of nostalgia. The ancestor was a hero, but he still couldn't withstand the passage of time. Without becoming an immortal, even a great emperor can't live forever. Immortals definitely exist. Zhou Yi glanced at Yin Ruyu and comforted. Isn't the best proof that the grand ancestor has lived for so long? Immortals definitely exist. Unfortunately, the ancestor couldn't wait until this time. Yin Ryu sighed and took out the green talisman given by Liu. I don't know why Sky Venerable asked us to come here. Could it be related to the ancestor? The ancestor's plan is flawless. There must be a reason for asking us to come here. Zhou Yi smiled. If you want to know why, won't you know if you throw the talisman out? Yin Ryu nodded and waved her hand to throw the talisman into the cold pool onto the cliff. Buzz! After a trembling sound, endless green light erupted. Azure Sea Blue Sky Lotus. The green light that filled the sky was like a vast ocean. In this ocean, a green lotus stood proudly with straight roots, swaying lotus leaves and blooming lotus flowers. Seeing this green lotus condense from light and shadow. Yin Ryu trembled all over, and 2 lines of hot tears rolled out her eyes. This is the ancestor's green lotus. Of course, this was not the Azure Lotus Emperor weapon. After the heart of the demon god and the Azure Lotus Emperor weapon were obtained by Liu, the heart of the demon god was refined into a clone, and the Azure Lotus Emperor weapon had already been planted with lotus flowers. This was just a talisman that Liu drew the power of the Azure Lotus Emperor weapon to construct. The green lotus image that appeared was just a shadow. Boom! Azure light rushed into the sky, brilliant and dazzling. The green lotus stretched out its lotus leaves and supported the eternal sky. Endless brilliance bloomed, and streams of light meandered around, turning into strange runes that were like dragons and phoenixes. This was the bird seal and dragon seal. Each rune was like the shape of a divine beast, and each rune had the power to shock the world. This was the great Tao of the Azure Arch. This was the Tao law of the Azure Arch. The green lotus emperor weapon was a lotus, and all the power contained within it was under Liu's control. At this moment, Liu was using the power of the green lotus emperor weapon. It was as though the Green Emperor was reincarnated. As a descendant of the Azure Emperor, Yin Ryu was shocked to see such a scene. Boom! At this time, a loud noise suddenly erupted from the cold pond below. A brilliant radiance soared into the sky. Within this radiance, an ancient stone pagoda suddenly rose from the bottom of the cold pond. The stone pagoda also erupted with a sky full of green light, and there were also countless birds, dragons, and seals moving about. Similarly, a green lotus that could intimidate all eternity and propel open the blue sky soared up. Ancestor! Seeing this stone pagoda, seeing this scene, Yin Ryu cried tears of joy. The ancestor is still alive. The ancestor is not dead yet. Yin Ryu pulled Zhou Yi's hand and shouted and jumped, cheering loudly. Buzz! With a buzzing sound, the phenomenon in the sky disappeared. The stone pagoda with green light roared and landed in front of Yin Ryu. A green light burst out from the stone pagoda. Although old, a figure that was still tall and upright appeared in front of Zhou Yi and Yin Ryu. Greetings, ancestor. Greetings, your majesty, Emperor Qing. Yin Ryu and Zhou Yi hurriedly bowed to this figure. My descendant? There's also a person from the Ji family? The figure condensed by the light was like a real person. The Azure Emperor glanced at the two and nodded. Are you the ones who woke me up? Ancestor, you are indeed still alive. You are indeed not dead yet. That's great. That's great. Yin Ryu was so happy that he was incoherent. Alive? The Azure Emperor sighed and shook his head slightly. If you hadn't woken me up, I'm afraid I would have died silently in my sleep. Ancestor, you are now. Yin Ryu's expression changed drastically, and he hurriedly asked with concern, The path to immortality is cut off, and my lifespan is coming to an end. With the ancient desolate tower as the foundation, I plan to evolve the immortal domain on my own and live forever. I didn't expect that even with my strength and the immortal artifact ancient desolate tower, it was still not enough. The Azure Emperor sighed. If you hadn't woken me up, I'm afraid I would have melted into the ancient desolate tower and disappeared. Now, even if I wake up, I don't have much lifespan left. Your Majesty, the immortal path is about to open. Grand Ancestor ordered us to come and find your Majesty to discuss something important. Zhou Yi respectfully bowed to the Azure Emperor and explained the reason for this trip. The immortal path is about to open? The Azure Emperor nodded. If it's really the immortal path, it's also good news. If it's not the real immortal path, then it's a disaster. That's right. Zhou Yi hurriedly said, Grand Ancestor once said that this immortal path is a dead end. A disaster is about to come. Grand Ancestor ordered us to find your Majesty to ask your Majesty to save the world. Grand Ancestor? Could it be the Grand Empyrean? He actually still exists in this world. The legendary senior expert actually still exists in this world. Then I need to pay him a visit. The Azure Emperor nodded, and the light dissipated into a ray of green light and was absorbed into the stone pagoda. The stone pagoda turned into a small gray pagoda that fell into Yen Ryu's hands. Let's go. Bring me to pay my respects to the Grand Empyrean. Yes. Yen Ryu respectfully held up the stone pagoda and pulled open the teleportation talisman with Zhou Yi. They instantly traveled through the void and returned to the Ji family's encampment. Grand Ancestor, we're back. Zhou Yi and Yen Ryu brought the stone pagoda and walked into the courtyard where Liu lived. Desolate Tower, Azure Emperor. Liu saw the desolate tower in Yen Ryu's hands and nodded with a smile. Greetings, Heavenly Venerable. With a flash of green light, the Azure Emperor's figure appeared and bowed to Liu. I's Grand Empyrean greets the Azure Emperor. Liu also bowed to the Azure Emperor. Using the desolate tower as the foundation to evolve the immortal domain, you've opened up a new path. Unfortunately, this path won't work. Liu saw the Azure Emperor's state at a glance. At this moment, the Azure Emperor was just a phantom. His real body had already fallen into the desolate tower and was unable to escape. Heavenly Venerable, do immortals really exist? Have you already become an immortal? The Azure Emperor looked at Liu. His dim yellow eyes were filled with longing. He was longing for this answer. Of course immortals exist. Liu nodded. Actually, among the many great emperors in this world, you are the one who should become an immortal the most. You are the one who should live forever. I find it a little strange that you can't live forever. I hope Heavenly Venerable can enlighten me. The Azure Emperor's body trembled as he looked at Liu in shock. He didn't know what Liu meant. Your original body is the immortal medicine. Liu shook his head and sighed. You severed your original body and transcended. However, you sever it too cleanly, right? Can't you comprehend something from the immortality characteristic of your original body? Vicious studied the 9 profundity immortal medicine and comprehended the secret of immortality. He lived 9 lives and became an immortal in the mortal world. The immortal medicine was the only thing in this world that could allow one to live forever. The characteristics of the immortal medicine must contain the secret of immortality. As the reincarnation of the Green Lotus immortal medicine, the Azure Emperor had actually forgotten the characteristics of his original body. I see. The Azure Emperor was enlightened. I sought immortality and the path to immortality. However, I didn't know that the path to immortality was already in my hands. Boom! A burst of green flames appeared on the desolate tower. It was as if a blazing flame was burning fiercely. The Azure Emperor's original body in the desolate tower was burning fiercely in the flames. The body and soul of the great emperor were turned into ashes in the flames. Buzz, the desolate tower shook. A green lotus seed flew out of the desolate tower and floated in midair. The Azure Emperor followed the characteristics of the immortal medicine and reincarnated into a lotus seed. Chapter 511. Ah, Ancestor. When Yin Ryu saw Emperor Qing turn into a lotus seed in the flames, she immediately cried out in alarm. Don't be nervous. Liu smiled. Your ancestor will be back soon. After saying that, Liu turned his head to look at Zhou Yi. Brat, you can even give away the immortal medicine as a gift. I believe there's still quite a few fruits from the immortal medicine, right? Ancestor's eyes are not wrong. Zhou Yi hurriedly took out a small human-shaped tree and presented it in front of Liu. This small tree was exactly the same as the one Zhou Yi had given Yi Fan. They were both fruits of the immortal medicine. The great emperor used the immortal medicine to live a second life. He did not swallow the entire immortal medicine, but only the fruit of the immortal medicine. It just so happens that I can use it to help Emperor Qing. Liu reached out to take the human-shaped immortal medicine fruit. With a wave of his hand, the human-shaped immortal medicine instantly turned into a ray of green light, turning into a pure life force. Emperor Qing had already consumed the immortal medicine and lived a second life. Consuming the immortal medicine again would no longer have any effect. However, at this moment, Emperor Qing was undergoing nirvana, and the life force of the immortal medicine was only used as firewood to ignite the fire. With a wave of his hand, the pure life force of the immortal medicine poured into the lotus seed after Emperor Qing's nirvana. Previous chapter, next chapter, boom. Green light filled the sky, and a vast life force sprouted. As the endless radiance circulated, a majestic figure appeared in the middle of the radiance. A tall and straight body, thick black hair, a vast and mighty aura, and an enormous might. A green lotus propped up the eternal blue sky. Emperor Qing had returned from nirvana. Thank you, Sky Sovereign, for your enlightenment. Emperor Qing respectfully bowed to Liu. No need to thank me. Liu waved his hand. I took away your heart of the Demon Emperor and the Azure Lotus Emperor weapon. This can be considered as settling a karma. Immortals caressed my head and gave me longevity. How can mere external objects compare to this kindness? The Azure Lotus Emperor weapon and the heart of the Demon Emperor were both things that Emperor Qing had given up on. Besides, what was imperial armament to a heavenly exalted? If a monarch weapon could be exchanged for a chance to live another life, countless great emperors in this world would cry and beg to send over their monarch weapons. Since you've already lived your third life, you'll have to contribute to the dark turmoil this time. Since Liu had found the Azure Supreme the Arch, he naturally would not let him stay idle. As you command, Sky Sovereign. After receiving such a huge favor, the Azure the Arch naturally would not decline. He naturally had to do his best. Very good. You can go and make your preparations. Liu waved his hand and sent Emperor Qing, Zhou Yi, and Yin Ryu out. At this time, Yi Fan had already arrived at the northern region's Purple Mountain. Northern region. In the middle of the vast desert, a majestic mountain towered into the clouds, majestic and majestic. This was the Purple Mountain. Yi Fan, the Grand Empyrean, said that Emperor Wu Shi is still alive. Is that true? The large black dog stood in front of the Purple Mountain, gazing at the majestic Purple Mountain, a little hesitant. What kind of person is Grand Supreme Tao Ancestor? How can his words be false? Fan comforted the big black dog and patted its head. Let's go. Let's go in and take a look. After passing through the passageway, Yi Fan and the large black dog arrived in front of a platform deep underground. The Tao platform was completely silent. That imposing figure with his back facing the common people had long since disappeared without a trace. At the end of the immortal road, who was the peak? This was a great existence that had shocked the ancient and modern times. With a light sound, a gentle ray of light lingered in the depths of the Tao platform, and a faint Emperor Qi pervaded the air. Great Emperor! The black dog let out a strange cry and rushed out. Seeing this, Yi Fan hurriedly followed. In a short moment, Yi Fan and the black dog arrived at the depths of the ground and saw the place where the light was rising. The dense vines formed a green curtain. Below the vines was a huge platform, and on the platform was a huge stone book that was about 10 meters long and 4 feet thick. No beginning scripture. Yifan and the black dog saw that on this huge book, a speck of light was lingering around it like a swimming dragon. Yifan, what did the Grand Empyrean give you? The large black dog asked Yifan. Hurry up and take it out. It's a bottle. I don't know what's inside. Yifan reached out and took out a jade bottle. He held in his hand and opened the bottle cap. Previous chapter, next chapter, boom. A huge amount of blood chi rushed out of the bottle, and a purple gold divine radiance blossomed. A vast and mighty radiance swept out, illuminating the entire underground space with a purple gold color. Under the cover of the purple gold divine radiance, the huge no beginning scripture shook violently and also burst out with a purple gold radiance, reflecting the light of the jade bottle in Yifan's hand. Emperor blood. The blood of the emperor of the innate saint body. No, it seemed to be even stronger than the emperor's blood. The black dog looked at the bottle in Yifan's hand in shock. Grand Empyrean, you even got this thing out? The Sky Sovereign told me to pour this bottle of blood on the no beginning scripture. Yifan glanced at the black dog and poured the jade bottle in his hand towards the huge no beginning scripture. A purple gold torrent rushed out of the bottle and into the infinite scripture. Boom! Endless purple gold radiance blossomed, and the huge book underwent a huge change in an instant. The huge book instantly shrunk, turning into a foot-long book. The stone on the book also disappeared, turning into a bronze-colored book that was woven with countless metal threads. Ding-dang! With a light ringing sound, the bronze book trembled slightly and slowly opened. Tens of thousands of rays of light, thousands of strands of auspicious chi. In the midst of the gorgeous radiance, the scripture of the no beginning scripture appeared in front of Yifan. The sky was filled with auspicious light. Page after page of the scripture flipped, the world shook, and the great Tao wailed. All things return to nothingness, the beginning of the world. The grand chanting of sutras rang out. It was as if all the gods and Buddhas were chanting at the same time. One symbol after another flew out, shining brightly, illuminating the mountains and rivers. This is no beginning technique. The big black dog looked at the scripture with a face full of shock. No, not just the no beginning technique. Every page of the scripture contains the power of a single attack from the great emperor of no beginning. Yifan was dumbstruck. This no beginning scripture had a total of 12 pages. In other words, it contained 12 attacks from the great emperor of no beginning. No wonder the Grand Empyrean told me to come here. With this book, there were 12 spells from the great emperor of no beginning. It was equivalent to a great emperor attacking 12 times. Yifan's hands trembled as he grabbed the no beginning scripture in his hands. With the no beginning scripture protecting me, even if I were to face the sovereign of a life-forbidden zone, I would still have the power to resist. The big black dog nodded, and then sighed. If only you had the innate saint body Tao embryo, you would be able to directly inherit the mantle of the great emperor of no beginning. Don't worry, the innate saint body Tao embryo will definitely be found. Yifan smiled as he glanced at the big black dog. He waved his hand and put away the no beginning scripture. Let's go, we're going back. Chapter 512. Sky Sovereign, we have retrieved the no beginning scripture. Leaf after returning to the G family. Fan Xian held the no beginning scripture in his hand and presented it in front of Liu. Not bad. Liu nodded, put it away. With the 12 spells sealed by the great Emperor Wu Shi, I believe you should have no problem protecting yourself. The spell sealed within the no beginning scripture was only the power of the great Emperor realm, not the mortal-immortal level spell that Liu had guessed before. From the looks of it, the great Emperor Wu Shi became immortal after entering the gap between the two realms. Liu guessed, according to this situation, the immortal emperor and the great Emperor Wu Shi should have become immortals in the gap between the two realms. Leaf the Sail put away the no beginning scripture and left with the black dog. Has Li Xiaomon's mission been completed as well? Liu raised his head and looked in the direction of the Jade Lake, a smile appearing on his face. Jade Lake. The ancient tree branches of the immortal peach tree were knotted together. The leaves were sparkling and translucent like jade, and the crown of the tree was surrounded by auspicious clouds. Under the ancient immortal peach tree, there was a divine stone that was about 3 meters tall. The divine stone was born with 9 orifices. It was exquisite and translucent, and its orifices swallowed and spat out the essence of heaven and earth, releasing a brilliant radiance of life. As the light flashed, the figure of a woman faintly appeared within the divine stone. Ice-skinned jade bones, peerless beauty, exquisite and translucent, as if it could wake up at any time and break out of the stone. This was the divine stone spirit embryo of the Jade Lake Sacred Ground. The divine stone spirit embryo, a holy spirit born of heaven and earth, possessed incomparably tyrannical power. Once it was born, it would be equivalent to a large success saint body, possessing the power of an emperor. More importantly, the divine stone spirit embryo was not a human, but a foreign species. It would be fine if this kind of existence became an emperor. After all, once he became an emperor, he would be the supreme ruler of the world. He would treat everyone equally and would no longer be limited to a certain race. However, if the divine stone spirit embryo did not become a great emperor, it would have the power of a large success saint body. For countless years, the Jade Lake Sacred Ground had been nurturing this divine stone spirit embryo, trying to influence it. However, Liu did not believe in soft persuasion. Liu was very familiar with the story of the farmer and the snake, but he was not interested in such things. Therefore, Li Xiaoman began to take action. Li Xiaoman took a stroll beside the immortal pond and quietly approached the ancient peach tree. Glancing at the divine stone spirit embryo, his fingertips moved slightly, and the talisman quietly flew out, without leaving a trace, and rushed into the divine stone spirit embryo. There was no sound and no movement. After this talisman was shot out, the divine stone's spirit embryo didn't move at all, as if nothing had happened. In fact, Liu's talisman was only a loyalty mark. How could the influence of foreign species compare to the loyalty mark? Very good. With the mark of loyalty, Liu instantly gained control of the god's stone spirit embryo. The divine stone spirit embryo is still lacking, so let's speed it up a bit. Liu smiled, flicked his sleeves, and stood up. With a single step, he traversed thousands of mountains and rivers and arrived at a special place. The Holy Cliff. The towering mountain was majestic, and it was pitch black, revealing an endless, gloomy aura. This was the achievement of a saintly being. He had swept away the dark turmoil and was proud of the world. He had entered the forbidden area of life, the undying mountain, cut off a black mountain, and took it out. However, this great completion saint physique had also fallen here. In his later years, the saintly being had been sneakily attacked by the undying Taoist and died with hatred. On the holy cliff, the blood of the saintly being had stained the cliff like a bloody river hanging in the sky. It was shocking. On this mountain, a golden notice was sealed on the cliff, and a vast pressure shrouded the cliff. As the golden light lingered, there was a mysterious aura. This is the place. Liu looked up and saw the notice and smiled. The Investiture of the Gods. This title is really too scary. The so-called Investiture of the Gods was a treasure refined by the Emperor of No Beginning to seal the undying Taoist. The undying Taoist had sneakily attacked and killed the saintly being in his later years. The Emperor of No Beginning was furious and sealed the undying Taoist at the place where the saintly being had fallen as punishment. The so-called undying Taoist had a powerful background. He was an avatar of the immortal emperor. Although he was not a great emperor, he was similar to a saintly being and had the combat strength of a great emperor. What's the use of sealing the undying Taoist here? It's better to feed the divine stone's spiritual embryo. Liu smiled and walked to the edge of the cliff. With a wave of his hand, a stream of light flashed, and the Investiture of the Gods flew out of the cliff. Together with the undying Taoist sealed in it, they fell into Liu's hands. Fellow cultivator, thank you for saving me. The undying Taoist joyful voice came from the investiture of the gods. Saving you? You wish. Li Yu sneered. With a wave of his hand, he put the investiture of the gods and the undying Taoist into the resource vault. A saintly being of great success, Li Yu looked at a stone coffin sealed on the cliff and sighed as he shook his head. The saintly being's later years are unknown. He was ambushed by the undying Taoist and died with hatred. I think you must be very unwilling in the underworld to accept this. Li Yu walked to the stone coffin. With a wave of his hand, the stone coffin was put into the resource vault. I will extract the power of your saintly being and integrate it into another saintly being. You two can fight side by side. After putting away the undying Taoist and the saintly being of great success, Li Yu was about to leave when he suddenly found a small pool outside the Saint Cliff. It revealed the aura of reincarnation of all things and reflected the past and present life. The reincarnation pool. In order to pursue immortality, the ancient supreme being left behind a strange substance after his transformation. This was also a substance of the great emperor level. It's still useful. I'll take it then. Walking to the side of the reincarnation pool, Li Yu stretched out his hand and pressed. The intertwined black and white light flowed and enveloped the entire reincarnation pool. Absorb. With a pull of his hand, the reincarnation pool flew up and turned into a spring in the yin and yang qi. With a flick of his sleeve, the reincarnation pool fell into the resource vault. Now is the time to feed the divine stone spirit embryo. Li Yu looked up at the jade lake sacred ground. With a step, he crossed thousands of rivers and mountains and arrived at the jade lake's sacred ground in the northern region. Void form. With the nether beast's magic, Li Yu's entire body turned into nothingness and disappeared between heaven and earth. No traces of him could be found. Although Li Yu had many ways to hide his tracks, the nether beast's void form magic was more convenient. Li Yu walked into the jade lake and came under the Saturn peach tree. When he saw the divine stone spirit embryo glowing with divine light, he smiled and nodded. Not bad. After adding the power of the undying Taoist, it will be able to be born immediately. Li Yu stretched out his hand and pointed a finger at the divine stone spirit embryo. System, decompose the undying Taoist. Extract origin energy and pour it into the divine stone spirit embryo. He gave the system an order in his mind. An array of light fell into the divine stone spirit embryo. The power of the undying Taoist, which was equivalent to the great sage constitution, was instantly poured into the divine stone spirit embryo. Bang! 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 With the injection of this power, the divine stone spirit embryo grew rapidly. Flesh, blood, bones, and soul were all born. In a short while, the divine stone spirit embryo had grown to its peak. Crack! The outer layer of the stone cracked, and a pure white light shone out from the cracks. Crack! Crack! The cracks became bigger and bigger. After a while, the divine stone broke into pieces and bloomed like the petals of a lotus. Inside the cracked godstone was a beautiful figure with skin of ice and bones of jade. She stood tall and straight, like a snow lotus on an ice mountain. A sacred spirit born from the Guanghan white jade? So it is the same type as the stone man. Li Yu nodded. Since it is the Guanghan white jade, I will name you Wang Shu. Thank you for the name, my lord. Wang Shu greets my lord. The beautiful woman bowed down to Li Yu. Chapter 513. Stay in the Jade Lake, sacred ground for now. When the divine stone spirit embryo broke out of its shell, the commotion it caused had already alarmed everyone in the Jade Lake sacred ground. At this moment, streaks of light shot out, piercing through the air and flying over. The divine stone spiritual embryo, Wang Shu, was just Li Yu's backup plan. When it was time to use it, he would summon it. Yes, Wang Shu replied and stood quietly under the immortality peach tree, waiting for the people from the Jade Lake to arrive. The spiritual embryo is born? Why is it so early? The Jade Lake sacred ground flew over in shock. After a while, a large group of women gathered around and chattered nonstop. You guys have fun. Li Yu smiled and left the Jade Lake sacred ground. I've done all the preparations. This time, I'll make those sovereigns of the Forbidden Land suffer. Liu flew across the sky and landed in the Forbidden Land of the remote antiquity. Master, you're here. Zhang Xian, the great sage sacred body, hurried over when he saw Liu. The Forbidden Land of the remote antiquity was still the same. Vicious was still sitting at the side, pretending to be a statue, and the desolate slaves were still wandering in the abyss. I haven't seen you for a few days. You seem to have recovered a little. Liu looked at Zhang Xian and saw that his qi and blood seemed to be more vigorous. It seemed that the human immortal martial path was very suitable for the sacred body. The martial path cultivation method that you taught me is very extraordinary. I've learned a lot after 2 days of cultivation. Zhang Xian was very surprised by the progress of his strength. The battle is about to begin. You need to recover as soon as possible. How about this? I'll help you again. Liu disintegrated the fallen sacred body that the holy cliff had taken. He extracted the pure power of the sacred body and sent it into Zhang Xian's body. Thank you, Master. As the power entered his body, Zhang Xian's qi and blood surged and shot up into the sky. Zhang Xian quickly sat down cross-legged and used his cultivation method to digest the power. Take your time to refine it. Liu waved his hand and walked toward Vicious. Vicious was still as motionless as a statue. The path to immortality is about to open, and this place is about to become a battlefield. Why didn't the great emperor make any preparations? At the very least, you should have taken back the immortality medicine, right? Liu looked at the 9 mountains surrounding the abyss and thought back to when he had plucked the holy fruits and divine spring water. He couldn't help but laugh. Finally, there was some movement from Vicious. She raised her head to look at Liu, and then there was no more movement from her. All right, Liu shook his head. There was no need for him to worry about Vicious. The path to immortalhood is about to open. I have to dig a good hole. Liu had already made his preparations. If he didn't make things difficult for them on the path of immortalization, he would be letting down his title as the mastermind. He walked up to the stone tablet of the road to immortality. Looking from this direction, the stone stele of the road to immortality and the stone stele of the 6 paths of reincarnation fist stood side by side, as if forming a door. Could it be that many years ago, this really was a road to immortality? Countless years ago, the spatial rift to the immortal realm had appeared here. It was very likely that the spatial rift was large enough for people to enter the immortal realm. That was why the ancients had built a road to immortality here. Of course, the greater possibility was that all the ancients who had entered the road to immortality from here had died. Do you think the immortal realm is that easy to enter? Even if you enter the gap between the 2 realms, without 3 worldly immortals working together, you won't be able to break through the barrier and enter the immortal realm. Ordinary great emperors can only dream of entering the immortal realm. Liu looked at the faintly appearing spatial rift and smiled. The great emperors of the forbidden regions think this is a road to immortality, but it's actually a dead end. So I'll let you die a bit more thoroughly. Water-like flowing light rippled, and Liu's figure seeped into the space crack that was about to appear like a watery light. Through the spatial rift, Liu entered the road to immortality that was about to take shape. Immortal light swirled in front of him like dazzling auroras, multicolored and dazzling, ethereal and profound, clear and aloof. These immortal lights seem to represent immortality and longevity. Immortal light is the natural qi of the world that seeped into the immortal realm. In essence, it's a level higher than the natural qi of this world. It's a bit like immortal qi. Reaching out, Liu grabbed a ray of light and brushed it with his yin and yang qi, dispersing it instantly. Liu already had a clear understanding of the nature of the immortal light. There was an immortal pass in front of him. Countless immortals, demons, monsters, and soldiers guarded the pass with murderous intent. A projection of the world's laws? The immortal pass, the immortals, demons, and soldiers weren't real existences, but imprints of the world. The rules of this world were a bit special. Powerful heavenly tribulations would manifest physical imprints. For example, ancient great emperors, great emperor weapons, immortal treasures, or the elixir of immortality. If the immortal realm is damaged, the world will not allow one to ascend to immortality. Going against the heavens would definitely result in a violent backlash from the world's laws. These immortal soldiers and horses are similar to heavenly tribulations. Liu smiled as he looked at the immortal pass in front of him. His figure flashed, and his entire body turned into nothingness, disappearing without a trace. This was turning into nothingness. Liu wanted to trick those great emperors, so he naturally wouldn't open a path for them. Naturally, he wouldn't fight with the immortal pass soldiers. Turning into nothingness, he merged with the world around him, becoming one with it. The Nether Beast's ability was very unique. Even when Liu passed through the immortal pass formed by the world's laws, he didn't cause any commotion. After passing through the immortal pass silently, Liu continued forward. Not long after, the path ahead was cut off. A huge chaotic void blocked the path. The path to immortality was cut off. As expected, this isn't a spatial crack to the immortal realm. With Liu's current cultivation level, he could naturally see the essence of this chaotic void. The chaotic void in front of him was actually a world that had yet to be opened or a space that had returned to chaos. Celestial Emperor Huang cut open the world with a single sword, separated yin and yang, destroyed time and space, and isolated the source of darkness. This chaos, could it be the chaos that Celestial Emperor Huang cut open? Thinking of the small pagoda mark in the forbidden land of ancient desolation, Liu felt that this was quite possible. Forget it. It doesn't matter if it's the chaos that Celestial Emperor Huang cut open. Liu smiled and shook his head. With a wave of his hand, a palm-sized palace appeared in his hand. Eternal immortal abode. This immortal abode that I refined should be enough to trick people. A strange smile appeared on Liu's face. With a wave of his hand, the eternal immortal abode entered the chaotic space. Ding, ding. The sound of the heavens was vast and mighty, and the great Tao resonated. Immortal clouds lingered, and thousands of auspicious auras flowed. In the endless immortal light, wan phoenixes cried, dragons soared, and tigers leaped. The sky was full of auspicious clouds, and a magnificent heavenly palace loomed in the clouds. With such a scene, who would believe that it's not the immortal realm? Even if I told them that it's fake, no one would believe me, right? Liu had a strange smile on his face. That's why I opened the net and waited for you to come to me. Chapter 514. Let's add some insurance. The Eternal Divine Palace was the combination of the Kingdom of Eternity, the Heavenly Tomb, and the Immortal Steel. Although it was extraordinary, it wasn't enough to seal a group of emperors. The Kunlun Bell is just right. Liu took the Kunlun Bell from his waist and waved it into the Eternal Divine Palace. Didn't Liu specially find the Kunlun Immortal Bell for this moment? With the Kunlun Immortal Bell and the Eternal Immortal Manor, it would be difficult for those emperors to come out once they entered. The arrangements are complete. I'm just waiting for them to come to me. Liu's body blurred. He went out of the path of deity and returned to the forbidden land of antiquity in an instant. It's time to act. Liu raised his eyes to look at the horizon as a sneer appeared on his face. With a wave of his hand, numerous transmission talismans tore through the void and flew out. The Ji family. The messaging talisman tore through the void. Great Emperor Xianyuan waved his hand and caught the messaging talisman. Great Emperor Xianyuan, take the void mirror with Emperor Yin and head to the outer space. Keep an eye on the underworld. You don't have to do anything. Just keep an eye on them. Liu's voice came from the message talisman. Understood. Emperor Huang Xianyuan grabbed the void mirror and soared into the sky, rushing towards the starry sky. At the same time, Emperor Shenong also received the same message talisman and rushed to the outer space with the Eternal Universe Furnace. Wang Shu, go to the outer space and keep an eye on the underworld with Emperor Yin and Emperor Huang. Wang Shu also received Liu's message in the Jade Lake Sacred Ground. Remember, If they come to the path of immortality, don't worry about them. If they don't come out, keep an eye on them. Don't let them come out and cause trouble when I attack. Understood. Pure white light shot up as Wang Shu charged into outer space. He met up with Emperor Yin and Emperor Huang and rushed towards the underworld. In the underworld, other than the unscrupulous Taoist Duanda, the underworld emperor who had left, the prison suppression emperor, the underworld artifact spirit, origin god, and origin ghost were all supreme existences. None of them were good. It would be fine if these people came out to challenge the immortal ascension road. However, if they didn't come, it would be very troublesome if they came out to cause trouble when Li Yu was dealing with the great emperors who challenged the immortal ascension road. With Wang Yishu and Emperor Yin and Emperor Huang holding them back, even if they were not strong enough, they could at least buy some time until Li Yu could free himself. Zhang Xian, Li Yu called out to the great success holy being in the forbidden area of remote antiquity. What orders does Sky Sovereign have? After absorbing the power of the holy cliff's fallen saint body, Zhang Xian's blood qi grew a little. If he unleashed his full power, he would be able to recover his full strength. Don't tell me you don't know the location of the Tyrant Body's ancestral star? Go, meet up with Yi Fan and make a trip to the Tyrant Body's ancestral star. Keep an eye on the 3 large success Tyrant Bodies sealed in the immortal origin for me. Li Yu naturally wouldn't ignore the 3 disasters of the large success Tyrant Body. He definitely had to keep an eye on them and not let them come out to cause trouble. At the Ji clan's encampment, Yi Fan also received the message talisman. The Sky Sovereign wants me to go to the Tyrant Body's ancestral star. Yi Fan nodded, grabbed the endless scripture, and jumped up, rushing towards the starry sky. With the 12 endless arts in the endless scripture, there would definitely be no problem for Yi Fan and Zhang Xian to join forces to restrain the Tyrant Body's ancestral star. Emperor Qing. The communication talisman broke through the air and landed in the courtyard where Emperor Qing, Zhou Yi, and Yan Ryu were. What orders does Sky Sovereign have? Emperor Qing and the other 2 hurriedly stood up and waited for Li Yu's instructions. Emperor Qing, take the desolate tower and head to the starry sky to await orders. After receiving my message, you will use the desolate tower to seal the entire Big Dipper star field. Remember, you must completely seal it off and not let anyone escape. Wan Qing understands. Emperor Qing solemnly nodded in agreement. Zhou Yi, disciple is here. Zhou Yi stood up with his sword and waited for his orders. Go to the flying immortal star. Remember, you only need to stay near the flying immortal star field. Don't go too deep into the flying immortal star field. You don't need to care about anything. Just stay there and guard it. Yes, sir. Zhou Yi bowed and accepted the order, following which Emperor Qing and Zhou Yi moved together, rushing to their destination according to Li Yu's arrangements. The reason why Emperor Qing used the desolate tower to seal the Big Dipper star field was to prevent the life forbidden zone from escaping. Since it had been activated, Li Yu naturally had to completely wipe out the life forbidden zone. He couldn't leave these scourges behind. As for Zhou Yi going to the flying immortal star, that was another consideration. The flying immortal star was the true path to immortality. This place was left behind by the sovereign emperor, and there were also 3 ancient sovereigns sealed within. Li Yu let Zhou Yi go over, just to keep an eye on that place to prevent any accidents from happening. If anything were to happen, Li Yu would be able to use Zhou Yi's supreme heavenly book system as a transfer point and directly attack from afar. Even if there were any unforeseen events, he would still be able to deal with them in time. There's still a very annoying guy in this world. Li Yu reached out and took off the Heaven Splitter sword from his waist. Heaven Splitter, you guard outside. Once you see the undying Heaven Blade appear, chop it up for me. Clang! The Heaven Splitter sword let out a sword cry as it whistled through the air and rushed into the starry sky. The undying Heaven Blade that the immortal Emperor had left behind in this world was a peak Emperor weapon that was about to become an immortal weapon. If he didn't keep an eye on it, it would be very troublesome if it took the opportunity to cause trouble. Everything that needs to be done has been prepared. Li Yu is waiting in the forbidden area of the ancient desolate land, waiting for the people sent to various places to be in position before he could make his move. Sky Sovereign, we are already in position. Wang Shu and Emperor Yin sent a message through the communication talisman. Sky Sovereign, we have already arrived at the Tyrant Body Ancestral Star. Large Success Saint Body Zhangxian and Yi Fan were also in position. Ancestral Master, I have already arrived at the Flying Immortal Star Field. A message came from Zhou. Sky Sovereign, Wan Qing will follow the orders of the time. Emperor Qing held the desolate tower in his hand and waited in the sky. Very good, everything is ready. Then let's open the curtain. Liu took a deep breath and turned to look at the ruthless man who was still sitting quietly in the forbidden area of the ancient desolate land. He smiled and said, Great Emperor, if you don't put away the immortal medicine, you will be in trouble later. Ruthless still did not respond at all. All right, I've already reminded you anyway. Liu shrugged his shoulders and walked in front of the stone tablet on the road of immortality. If I let this spatial crack open on its own, I'm afraid I'll have to wait a few more years. I can't wait that long. Liu glanced at the faintly visible spatial crack and extended his hands towards it. Heaven tearing. Both of his hands fiercely pierced into the spatial crack that was about to take shape. A huge force suddenly erupted as his hands separated and tore apart. This, like a piece of cloth being torn apart, a tearing sound rang out in the air. This spatial crack that was about to take shape was instantly torn apart by Li Yu into a huge crack that was 3,000 meters long. Boom! A vast and mighty radiance soared into the sky, and endless immortal light violently erupted. The road to immortality has opened. Seeing this ray of light and the immortal light that filled the sky, everyone in this world was alarmed. Immortal ascension! Immortal ascension! Quick! Go quickly! One figure after another broke through the air and rushed towards the forbidden area of the ancient desolate land. The curtain had been pulled open, and the big hole had been dug. Chapter 5:15. Boom! At this moment, a mighty light rushed out of the 7 forbidden zones at the same time. The divine radiance was vast and mighty, shooting straight into the sky. The Emperor's aura was awe-inspiring. Even though there was only a trace of it, it was enough to shake heaven and earth. The terrifying Emperor's aura made countless mortals and low-level cultivators tremble. Had the path to immortality opened? All the cultivators in the world were shocked and trembled all over. How tempting was becoming an immortal. Immortality was the pursuit of all cultivators. The opportunity to become an immortal had appeared. This day had finally arrived. However, ordinary cultivators did not dare to act rashly. Since the supremes of the 7 forbidden zones had already awakened, no one dared to act rashly before these supremes made a move. Roar! A mighty roar shook heaven and earth. In the primordium ancient mind of the 7 forbidden zones, a huge figure rushed out of the fog and revealed its true appearance in front of everyone. It was a silver Qilin. It was dazzling and majestic, and its light filled the sky for tens of thousands of miles. Heaven and earth shook, and the world was shocked. The divine power of this Qilin made heaven and earth tremble, and all living beings trembled. This is the ancient Qilin Emperor. When this mighty Qilin appeared, everyone who saw this scene trembled all over, and their hearts were shocked to the extreme. The Emperor's aura and power had finally appeared in this world. The silver Qilin's body was surrounded by immortal light. In a flash, it had already arrived in the forbidden zone of the ancient antiquity and arrived in front of the big crack on the path to immortality. Staff come! The Qilin roared, and its body emitted a dazzling light. In the light, a silver-haired figure with an imposing aura walked out. The void shook violently, and a blue light broke through the sky. A blue-gold Qilin staff fell into the hands of the ancient Qilin Emperor. At the same time, in the immortal mausoleum of the 7 forbidden zones, a golden light crossed the sky like a rainbow bridge. An ancient war chariot drove out of the golden rainbow bridge. A Taoist sat cross-legged on the ancient war chariot with an ancient longsword on his knees. This person wore a purple gold crown and a Taoist robe. His grayish-brown hair was scattered, and the scene of the destruction of the sun, moon, and stars appeared in his eyes. This person was one of the 9 heavenly venerables of the mythological era, Heavenly Venerable Chong Sheng. The war chariot broke through the air, and Heavenly Venerable Chong Sheng instantly arrived in the forbidden zone of the ancient antiquity. The undying mountain was filled with energy. A figure covered in black armor was riding on a huge divine tiger. This person held a pitch-black halberd in his hand. It was a halberd forged from black dragon pattern gold. The halberd was pitch black like ink, piercingly cold, ghastly, and terrifying. It seemed capable of tearing space apart and shattering a myriad of stars. This person was a stone golem who had achieved the Tao and was known as the Stone Emperor. Amidst the vast and mighty divine light, the Stone Emperor rode on his giant tiger and traversed through the void, arriving in front of the forbidden area of the ancient desolation. Then, the Supreme of the ruins of God, the Master of reincarnation, the Supreme of light and darkness, and the sky abandoning Supreme, the 4 ancient emperors, all appeared at the same time and arrived at the road of immortality. 7 great monarchs appeared at the same time. Their majestic monarch aura shook the void, frightening all living beings. The path to immortality has indeed opened. A huge crack hung in the void ahead. Immortal light danced in the sky like brilliant fireworks. Amidst the dazzling light, the towering heavenly palace was faintly discernible. Celestial clouds lingered around it, and the light was boundless. There were swans and phoenixes chirping in harmony, and true dragons soaring in the sky. In a trance, a corner of an incomparably vast, immortal realm vaguely appeared. After countless years of waiting and countless years of hardship, I finally waited for this life. Finally, this day has arrived. The ancient Qilin Emperor raised the Qilin staff in his hand. In this life, I must become an immortal. We will definitely embark on the path to immortality. Heavenly Venerable Longevity smiled as he stroked his sword, his eyes shining brightly. This great empress, the Stone Emperor, held his halberd and turned his head to look at the white-robed great empress sitting at the bottom of the abyss. He frowned. Humph! As if sensing the Stone Emperor's gaze, Vicious snorted coldly and slowly stood up like a statue. Boom! Vicious waved his hand, and the 9 majestic sacred mountains around the abyss rumbled loudly. One after another, large cracks appeared on the 9 mountains. The 9 sacred mountains were cracking and shattering. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Rays of light shot up from the 9 sacred mountains. The 9 divine herbs that grew on the 9 sacred mountains rose from the ground amidst the rays of light, turning into blazing balls of light that shot into the sky. The 9 divine herbs were all dazzling, and their leaves were translucent as they emitted an eternal glow. Boom! The great Tao rumbled, and the sky was filled with a dazzling rain of light. The 9 divine herbs turned into rays of light and merged into one, forming a huge ball of light. The ball of light hung in the air, and it was dazzling as if it were a sun hanging high in the sky. Boom! The ball of light suddenly exploded. The 9 divine herbs merged into one, and an immortal herb was formed. The immortal herb was about 2 feet tall. Its bark was like dragon scales, and its branches were knotted together. It had a total of 9 branches, and each branch was like a phoenix spreading its wings. The leaves had 9 different shapes and 9 different colors. This was the 9 profundity immortal herb. Boom! The 9 sacred mountains collapsed, and the ground caved in. The former forbidden area of the antiquity era had completely collapsed when the path to immortality opened, turning into a vast depression. At the end of the depression, a huge stone tablet stood majestically, and 3 large words were engraved on it: Path to Immortality. This great empress is quite tactful. The Stone Emperor sneered. Although the path to immortality is in the forbidden area of the Antiquity era, it's not a place that she can monopolize. It's quite tactful of her to give way early. Boom! The Stone Emperor hadn't even finished speaking when a slender hand that was as translucent as white jade tore through the air and slapped down at the Stone Emperor. Humph! You dare to attack me? Do you think I'm afraid of you? The Stone Emperor sneered as he raised his halberd and slashed at the white hand. Boom! The slender hand and the pitch-black halberd collided, and a shocking explosion erupted, releasing a dazzling light. If it weren't for the presence of the other ancient emperors, who used their own strength to suppress the impact, the entire Big Dipper starfield would have been pulverized. PFFF, the Stone Emperor's body shook, and he spat out a mouthful of blood as he staggered back a few steps. The other ancient emperors were shocked to see the Stone Emperor spitting out blood and being injured by vicious attack. Even if the Stone Emperor had severed his own saber and was no longer at his peak, he was still injured by a single blow. However, to be injured by a single strike, the strength of this empress was actually so terrifying. Very well, I haven't suffered such a loss in a long time. The Stone Emperor roared, and his hair stood on end. His eyes shone with a cold light like a bolt of lightning. The black halberd shone with a dazzling light as the Stone Emperor stepped forward, ready to fight with Vicious. The path to immortality is about to open. Why are the two of you fighting so pointlessly? Let's stop. The other ancient emperors quickly stopped the two of them from fighting. Once the two emperors started fighting, it would definitely affect the path to immortality. If the path to immortality was damaged because of the battle, it would be very troublesome. The ancient emperors naturally wouldn't take such a risk, and they quickly stopped the two of them. The Stone Emperor put away his halberd angrily. Vicious also ignored the Stone Emperor. The path to immortality has appeared. Everyone, the opportunity to become an immortal is right before your eyes. The ancient Qilin Emperor raised his Qilin staff and pointed at the crack in the void. He roared, "Become an immortal!" Boom! A dazzling light shot up as the ancient Qilin Emperor took the lead and struck at the crack in the void with his staff. The battle for the path to immortality had officially begun. Those who thought the main character was weak stopped messing around and watched first. The main character was so strong that it scared people to death. How could he be weak? Chapter 516. When the Thearchs attacked, heaven and earth trembled. The seven paragons joined forces to attack. This was unprecedented in history. Boom! Heaven and earth cracked, and the void collapsed. Endless light erupted, more dazzling than 10,000 suns. The seven paragons joined forces, shocking the universe and suppressing eternity. In the crack on the path of immortality, laws intertwined and light flowed. The seven Thearchs joined forces and entered the crack, flattening the laws. The seven paragons stepped onto the path of immortality. The immortal pass stood in front of them like a majestic city. Countless immortals, demons, and monsters raised their weapons and roared. Vast killing intent covered heaven and earth. Screech, a huge red divine bird, rushed out of the immortal pass. This was a vermilion bird. Although it was not its true form and was only formed by laws, its power was not inferior to that of the Thearchs. Kill! The paragons attacked together. It was as if the heavens were about to be destroyed. The stars shook and the void trembled. Seven mighty divine lights shot out, smashing the vermilion bird formed by laws. Its feathers flew everywhere, and it exploded into a rain of light. However, this was only the beginning. In the immortal pass, endless light soared into the sky. Figures of gods and demons rushed out with monstrous power. These gods and demons were all formed by laws. Kill all of them! The ancient Qilin Emperor roared, and the blue-golden divine staff suppressed the surroundings. With a slash, millions of corpses fell. Millions of gods and demons were reduced to ashes. The Thearchs joined forces and fought fiercely. Their power was unstoppable. Kill! The figures of gods and demons in the immortal pass seemed to be endless. After killing millions of gods and demons, thousands of soldiers and horses swarmed out in an instant. Thousands of soldiers and horses covered heaven and earth, and the vast killing intent caused heaven and earth to tremble. Slain with a sword, the immortal sword in heavenly venerable Shang's hand whistled. With a slash of the sword, heaven and earth changed color, as if heaven and earth were being split open. The immortal sword swept past, and flesh and blood splattered. Immortals and demons were exterminated. Millions of gods and demons, and tens of millions of soldiers in armor could not stop the seven paragons at all. They soon arrived in front of the immortal pass formed by laws. Kill! The halberd in the stone emperor's hand smashed down heavily on the grand pass, striking it squarely. Heaven and earth cracked, and the surroundings shook. Crack! The gate shook violently, and a huge crack appeared. At the same time, the other supreme martial artists also made their moves. Boom! With a loud bang, the majestic city gate tower collapsed. The impregnable pass collapsed. Immortal light rushed into the heavens, tearing apart the 9 heavens and 10 earths, shaking up the mortal world. Where's the road? Where is the path to immortality? The impregnable pass was shattered, and the great city was flattened, but there was no road ahead. The road to immortalhood was cut off. After waiting for so long, was it all for naught in the end? If there's no path, then I'll make one. The ancient emperors roared in anger. Beams of earth-shattering divine light blasted into the void, opening up a path to the immortal realms. After hundreds of millions of years of waiting, the path to immortality was right in front of them. How could they give up? The 7 supreme beings erupted with all of their strength. They hacked open the immortal path and advanced courageously, until they reached the end of the path. At the end of the path to immortality is a chaotic void. A huge hole filled with endless primal chaos appeared in front of them. There was no way out. Was this the end? Where was the celestial realm? Ding-dang. The heavenly music was vast and mighty, and the great Tao resonated. In the chaotic void, multicolored light bloomed, tens of thousands of auspicious clouds, and thousands of auspicious auras. Under the cover of the primal chaos, a gorgeous heavenly palace was faintly discernible in the light. Wands and phoenixes sang together, and true dragons soared in the sky. The vast immortal realms seemed to reveal a mysterious corner. The immortal realms. That's the immortal realms. After searching for countless years, the path to immortality is right in front of us. Immortalhood. Immortalhood. The 7 supreme beings were wild with joy when they saw the scene in the primal chaos. Let's go. Let's go. We'll become immortals today and live for eternity. We'll be immortal forever. Everyone laughed and rushed toward the immortal palace in the primal chaos. They plunged into a huge hole. It's really the immortal realms? They entered the immortal realms. In the 7 forbidden zones, the other supreme beings who were watching this scene couldn't sit still. Is the immortal realms really here? It shouldn't be. Even though they saw this scene, there were still some supreme beings who didn't move. Because these supreme beings firmly believed that this path to immortality wasn't the real path to immortality. Let's do it. At this moment, another 4 figures rushed out from the life forbidden zone. They turned into brilliant rays of light and soared into the sky, rushing into the immortal realms. The 4 figures were unstoppable. They killed gods and demons, shattered armors, and shattered laws. Braving the brilliant rain of light, they also rushed into the primal chaos hole. The primal chaos was silent. There was no more sound. The 11 ancient emperors rushed into the primal chaos hole, rushed into the vast immortal light, and rushed into the majestic heavenly palace. They really entered the immortal realms? Everyone who was watching this scene was speechless. They were both expectant and nervous. However, no one else came out of the forbidden zones. No one's coming. Liu, who had turned into nothingness with a void ability and was hiding at the side, frowned slightly. You're cautious. I was going to catch all of you in one fell swoop. Li Yu sneered. He was about to make a move when something unexpected happened. Amitabha, a Buddhist chant shook heaven and earth. On Mount Meru, endless power of faith surged like a raging tide. A great Buddha sat cross-legged at the top of the mountain, his divine power reaching the heavens and the earth. Thousands of auspicious auras, endless rays of light, endless power of faith surged, even more vast than the ocean. If I attain Bodhi, all living beings in the heavens and realms will receive endless light, endless life, and endless blessings. The mighty vow spread throughout the entire universe. At this moment, on the other side of the starry sky, in the wilderness of the universe, as long as it was a land of Buddhism, endless power of faith gathered, covering the sky and earth. Like a sky full of light rain, the power of faith gathered from all corners of the universe and fell on Mount Meru. Countless light rains sprinkled all over the sky. Buddha is merciful. He transcends all suffering and saves all living beings from the sea of suffering. Are you willing to follow? Amitabha. Hundreds of millions of believers chanted the name of Buddha in unison and stepped into Mount Meru. Boom! Mount Meru rose from the ground, emitting a monstrous Buddhist light. It carried billions of Western Desert Buddhist believers and rushed into the path of immortality, rushing into the primal chaos hole. The *M. How could he do this? When Li Yu saw this scene, he frowned deeply. The Amitabha Emperor's original body had been destroyed long ago. This Buddha was a clone formed by the power of faith. He actually brought billions of believers to the path of immortality. He was obviously playing with fire. Most of these believers were ordinary people. When they were on the path of immortality, they would all die if there was a slight tremor. How could he disregard the lives of his believers for his own path of immortality? Was he still a Buddha? Where was his benevolence? Since you are so cruel, don't blame me for being merciless. Li Yu snorted and flicked his finger, sending a message to the Lotus Arch. Lotus Arch, seal the entire Big Dipper. Yes. The Lotus Arch replied and waved his hand, sending the ancient desolate tower in his hand into the Big Dipper. Boom! The ancient desolate tower shone brightly and turned into a boundless tower, enveloping the entire Big Dipper. *M. What's going on? The ancient desolate tower. That's the Eastern Wilderness divine artifact. The ancient desolate tower. The ancient desolate tower sealed the entire starry sky. What is he trying to do? At this moment, everyone in the world was shocked, not knowing what was going on. Even the beings in the Forbidden Zone were very uneasy. It's time to reel in the net. Li Yu shouted coldly and rushed into the primal chaos space like lightning. Chapter 517. Within the chaotic void. Immortal light lingered in front of them. Auspicious clouds filled the sky, and a vast heavenly palace loomed. Together with the Amitabha Emperor's belief clone that flew over with Mount Meru, there were a total of 12 great emperors. They opened up a path in the chaos and rushed towards the heavenly palace. The immortal domain is right in front of us. Opening up a path in the chaos was much more difficult than the path to immortalhood that had been cut off previously. Every step forward required a lot of hard work and effort. Kill! Divine light whistled and cut through the chaos. The group of great emperors did not slow down at all. We're finally here. After going through untold hardships and doing their best, the group of great emperors finally arrived at the front of the heavenly palace. On a huge square paved with white jade, the majestic heavenly palace that stretched for thousands of miles stood in front of them. Endless radiance blossomed above the immortal palace. An eternal and everlasting intent realm filled the entire immortal palace. It's the immortal domain indeed. Feeling the eternal intent, the group of great emperors was overjoyed. Their eyes shone brightly. Let's go. The 12 great emperors flew towards the majestic palace gates. Plop! Just as they rushed up the 9 steps in front of the palace gates, a boundless pressure pressed down on them. Caught off guard, the group of great emperors was ruthlessly slapped down by this huge pressure. They crashed onto the steps with a boom. This force came out of nowhere. Caught off guard, the group of great emperors fell from midair. They were battered and exhausted. This is the sacred ground of the heavenly palace. It's indeed disrespectful for us to fly past. If we want to enter the palace, we can only walk forward. The great emperors were experienced and knowledgeable. After thinking for a while, they understood the reason. There must be an immortal formation in front of the palace. This immortal formation's function was to prohibit flying. They could only walk forward. Although we are supreme beings, I'm afraid we can't be too arrogant in the immortal domain. Even though the group of great emperors were people who had suppressed the ancient times and looked down upon the world, they had no choice but to put away their arrogance in front of immortals. Let's go. Putting away their arrogance, the group of great emperors stepped onto the steps and walked towards the palace gates. Boom! As he took a step forward, the pressure that enveloped him suddenly increased by tens of thousands of times. The enormous pressure made the group of great emperors tremble slightly. This place, how can there be no test to enter the immortal sect? The fish leaps over the dragon's gate. The lightning burns its tail. If we want to ascend to the heavens in a single bound, we must go through trials. Test. Haha, what test are we afraid of? The martial monarchs burst out laughing. Their bodies glowed brightly as they gathered their monarch force and continued to advance. There were 9 steps in front of the gate of immortality. At this moment, everyone had reached the 2nd step and was about to step onto the 3rd step. Boom! When he took the 3rd step, the enormous power suddenly increased sharply, as if thousands of heavy mountains were pressing down on him. It is indeed a test. There were 9 steps, and with each step, the pressure increased by 10,000 times. This kind of formation must be a test. Dong! Dong! Boom! Their entire bodies flickered with divine radiance. Natural laws circulated, and divine chains of order spiraled. Every single emperor gave it their all. They surged with divine might and advanced courageously. Level 7, Level 8, 9th level. Every step they took was as if they were going against the entire world. When they took the last 3 steps, it was as if they were walking with the sky on their backs, as if the entire world was pressing down on them. I am a martial monarch, the supreme of this world. Even the heavens and earth cannot make me submit. The martial monarchs roared and used all their strength to take the 9th step and ascend to the 9th step. The bones in their bodies crackled, and the blood in their bodies surged like raging waves. The martial monarchs sublimated to the extreme and returned to the martial monarch realm. They unleashed their strongest power and finally stepped onto the 9th step. Ding-dang. The celestial sound was faint like music and flute, melodious and drifting. Flowers fell from the sky, golden springs surged from the ground, and multicolored light filled the sky. It was as if they were welcoming, congratulating, and celebrating. Amidst the various phenomena, the gate of the immortal palace slowly opened. Ha ha ha! Looking at this scene, the martial monarchs laughed heartily. After going through hardships and passing the test, the gate of the immortal realm was now open, and the path to immortality was open. After waiting for so long, they had finally succeeded. We have finally stepped into the immortal realm. Immortality is right in front of us. The group of emperors grinned from ear to ear, straightened their clothes, and walked into the gate of the divine palace with majestic steps, with smiles on their faces. Then they were tricked to death. The fish have fallen into the net. Liu looked at the immortal palace with a smile and waved his hand gently. Clang! The gate of the immortal palace closed instantly. Clang! A mighty bell chime reverberated through the clouds. The laws intertwined and the Tao flowed. The Kunlun immortal bell transformed into a huge golden bell, suppressing the entire immortal palace. What's going on? The sudden change caused these great emperors to turn pale with fright. Damn it, we are trapped. The ancient Qilin emperor raised his Qilin staff with a grave expression. This is not the immortal realm. This is a trap. Heavenly Venerable Shang pulled out his sword with a clang. Bastard! Who is it? Who is scheming against us? The Stone Emperor raised his black halberd and roared furiously. The other martial monarchs also had ugly expressions. Scheming against the martial monarchs? And tricking more than 10 martial monarchs? Who was so bold? Who was so generous? Kill our way out. The martial monarchs roared as divine light bloomed in their hands. Powerful attacks were about to erupt. It's too late. Liu chuckled and pointed his finger. Buzz, black and white light flowed out as the Taiji Yin-Yang fish landed in the Immortal Palace. When the chaos was first created, Yin and Yang appeared. Heaven and earth, black and yellow, were born. Taiji Yin and Yang formed the Great Tao. The 5 elements and 8 trigrams proved the heavens. A mighty song rang out, and the entire Immortal Palace was filled with black and white Yin and Yang. Yin and Yang evolved, and black and yellow intertwined. The 5 elements rotated, and the 8 trigrams were born. A huge Taiji diagram descended from the sky like a heavenly canopy, and a boundless aura came crashing down. When the Yin and Yang energies brushed past each other, the Tao laws collapsed. The order was annihilated, and the will of the heavens was no longer visible. At this moment, all the martial monarchs were horrified to discover that their powers were completely restrained by the Taiji diagram. They couldn't use any power at all. This aura, the Grand Empyrean. This is the Grand Empyrean. Under the suppression of the Taiji diagram, the martial monarchs cried out in horror. The legendary Grand Empyrean from the chaotic ancient era is still alive? Why is the Grand Empyrean attacking us? Some of the martial monarchs were confused. Could it be because of what we did in the past? Some of the martial monarchs who had started the dark chaos paled instantly, and cold sweat broke out on their foreheads. Grand Empyrean, please wait. Those martial monarchs who had done many evil things panicked and couldn't help but beg Liu for mercy. However, Liu ignored them. This is my Tao. This is my rule. This is my world. Liu stretched out his hand and pressed it on the eternal immortal palace with a smile. I control the heavens, and uphold the heavenly laws. In my world, you have no room to resist. Keep. With a wave of his sleeve, the entire eternal immortal palace was sucked into the resource vault. All the martial monarchs who had entered the immortal palace were captured. Chapter 518. 12 Great Emperors of the Ancients. What a great harvest! Liu was all smiles when he saw the eternal immortal abode and the 12 great emperors of the ancients enter the resource vault. He had tricked the 12 great emperors into the depths of the sea. Now that they were in the resource vault, Liu could decide their fate. System, scan the divine souls and memories of all the great emperors. Bring out all those who started the dark upheaval and those who intend to do so. The 5-colored light swept across and brought out the great emperors of the ancients. There were only 5 people left in the eternal immortal abode. One was the ancient Chilean emperor. This ancient existence from the primordium ancient mind might be of a foreign race, but he was also a heroic figure. Just like the holy Emperor Dojan, he was brave and fearless. This time, the ancient Chilean emperor had gone to the path of immortalhood only to become an immortal and fight to the death. He had no intention of harming the common people. The ancient Chilean emperor can spare his life. Liu nodded and let the ancient Chilean emperor go. The path of justice requires companions. Therefore, the ancient Chilean emperor can follow me from now on. Liu was a person who would do anything for others. Naturally, he wouldn't let go of what he had obtained. Other than the ancient Chilean emperor, there were a few other great emperors who were upright and had never harmed the common people. One was the Azure Sun Great Emperor, Xiaobei. He was a human great emperor. His Azure Sun lamp was like the sun, and his power was unstoppable. The Azure Sun Great Emperor's temperament was like the sun in the sky. He was upright and righteous. The last one was the Purple Firmament Great Emperor, Luo Zheng. He was also a human great emperor. He was skilled in lightning arts and was famous for his purple firmament lightning. His emperor weapon was the purple firmament lightning all. The power of lightning was fierce and mighty. He was a strong and upright great emperor. Other than these 3 ancient emperors, there were 2 others. One was the Buddha body of the Amitabha Great Emperor, and the other was a foreign race. This non-humankind emperor was a black tortoise who had attained the Great Tao. He looked somewhat similar to the old turtle from the southern wasteland. This black tortoise ancient emperor had a very calm personality. He liked to be quiet and did not like to move. Even when he was in power, he basically did not care about anything. He stayed in his nest for countless years and was too lazy to move. This black tortoise ancient emperor only sought longevity and immortality. He didn't even leave his house, so naturally, he had never caused any harm to this world. Emperor Amitabha's Buddha body led a group of believers on the path to immortalhood. When he broke through the immortal barrier and entered the primordial chaos, his believers were all but wiped out. This is a guy who only cares about himself and doesn't care about anyone else. Liu did not have any good impression of this Amitabha great emperor's Buddha body. Therefore, it was impossible for this guy to let him live. System, break down the stone emperor, the longevity heavenly venerate, the light and darkness heavenly venerate, and the heaven-abandoning master, and extract their life essence. These four fellows were all vicious and merciless. They had harmed the common people for countless years. They had launched many dark upheavals and destroyed countless lives. Such fellows naturally couldn't be allowed to live. After breaking them down, they could be used to replenish the life force of others. It was just right. With a sweep of the five-colored brilliance, the four supremes instantly collapsed and turned into pure life essence. Ancient Chilan Emperor, Black Tortoise Ancient Emperor, Azure Sun Great Emperor, Purple Firmament Great Emperor. These four are my subordinates. Liu waved his hand, and four rays of brilliance landed on the heads of the four great emperors. The mark of loyalty was deeply imprinted in the minds of the four great emperors. System, extract four portions of life essence and inject them into the four great emperors to repair the damage to their bodies and replenish their life essence. These four great emperors were already old. Even if their strength hadn't decreased, their life force wasn't much. If they didn't replenish their life force, they wouldn't be able to live for long. If Liu wanted them to work for him, he definitely couldn't let them die too quickly. After injecting four portions of the great emperor's life essence, even if they were great emperors in their old age, their life force was still extremely terrifying. Compared to launching dark upheavals and absorbing the life force of other living beings, this life essence was much more powerful. After the life essence was injected, a huge amount of life force sprouted and the bodies of the four great emperors quickly changed. From an old appearance with white hair and beard to an appearance in the prime of life with thick black hair and sparkling jade-like skin. Not bad. It won't be a problem for them to live for at least 1,000 or 2,000 years. Liu nodded in satisfaction when he saw the changes in the bodies of the four great emperors. At this point, he had decomposed four great emperors and taken four great emperors as his subordinates. Only four were left. One was the Buddha body of the Amitabha Great Emperor. One was a supremacy from Sky Burial Island. One was the Lord of the Divine Ruins, and the last was a supremacy from the Reincarnation Sea. These four weren't righteous people. Lee had already made plans to decompose them as well. However, he hadn't found a suitable use for them yet, so he put them aside for the time being. Not bad. Liu's wallet instantly bulged after the road of immortalization was a huge scam. Even if he didn't count the Emperor weapons of the four subordinates, he still had 8 Emperor weapons left. Even Liu did not have many weapons at the level of an Imperial armament. The 5 great divine spirits of the origin world were equivalent to great emperors, but they didn't have suitable weapons. Kai Yi and Xialing also didn't have such weapons. At this moment, with these 8 Emperor weapons, Liu's subordinates could be replaced with cannons. Are there really people who aren't afraid of death? At this moment, Liu suddenly heard a report from Wang Shu and the Sage Physique. The underworld and the tyrant body's ancestral stars seemed to be moving. The underworld shook, and the tyrant body's ancestral star also shot out a ray of light. It seemed that these two parties couldn't sit still anymore. After the Azure Emperor sealed the entire Big Dipper starfield with the ancient desolate tower, The underworld and the tyrant body's ancestral star started to move. From their point of view, it seemed that someone wanted to monopolize the road of immortalization and want to play some tricks. As a result, these two parties were somewhat dissatisfied with the Azure Emperor's action of sealing the Big Dipper starfield. I've just taken in 4 great emperors. They can be put to good use. Liu waved his hand and released the 4 great emperors he had just taken in. Greetings, Grand Celestial Venerable. The Ancient Qilin Emperor, the Ancient Tortoise Emperor, the Azure Sun Emperor, and the Purple Firmament Emperor bowed respectfully to Li Yu after they were released by Li Yu. Qilin and Black Tortoise, go to the underworld and assist Wang Shu. Azure Sun and Purple Firmament, go to the Tyrant Body's ancestral star and assist the sage Physique Zhangxian. Li Yu waved his hand and opened 2 portals in front of him as he instructed the 4 great emperors. Yes, the Qilin and Black Tortoise stepped into the portals to the underworld. Azure Sun and Purple Firmament rushed directly to the Tyrant Body's ancestral star. With the addition of these 4 new forces, the underworld and the Tyrant Body's ancestral star would definitely not dare to make any moves. The outside world is stable now. Now, it's time to clean up the life forbidden zone. Li Yu's figure turned into nothingness as he rushed out of the road of immortalization and landed in the destroyed forbidden zone of the ancient desolation. At this moment, Vicious put away the 9 Wonders immortal herb and sent the chaotic dragon nest into the void. He was residing in the chaotic dragon nest. This divine object of a nest of 10,000 dragons had already been used by Vicious as a place to store his other lifetimes. Li Yu glanced inside and discovered that there were 6 coffins placed in the primal chaos dragon nest, including the current Vicious Little Nan Nan and the heaven-swallowing devil pod. Vicious had already lived 9 lives. As long as the 9 lives were combined, he would be a true mortal immortal. Why hasn't she combined the bodies of the 9 lives? Are you waiting for Yi Fan to become a mortal immortal? Li Yu couldn't be bothered to care about the matter of the ruthless man, other than the forbidden area of the ancient desolation, the other ancient mines, undying mountain, ruins of God, immortal mausoleum, sea of reincarnation, and sky burial island all have some ancient emperors hidden within them. Not many of these people are good. Li Yu raised his head and glanced at the few life forbidden zones. The corner of his mouth curled up into a sneer. Now, it's your turn. Chapter 519. This road of immortalization is a dead end to begin with. There's no need to keep it around to harm others. The emperors of old had already been tricked. If this road of immortalization was left here, it would only serve as a chance for other saints to try their luck. Even emperors couldn't enter it. Anyone below the emperors would die. With this road of immortalization here, it could only harm others. Then I'll shatter it. Li Yu leaped into the air and slammed his palm forward. A giant palm print that reached the heavens, and the earth slammed into the road of immortalization. Boom! Heaven and earth shook, the void trembled, the laws shattered, and the great Tao wailed. The dazzling road of immortalization was instantly smashed into chaos. It's actually shattered? The road of immortalization is shattered? Who is this person? Why did he shatter the road of immortalization? In the Big Dipper constellation, countless people who were concerned about the road of immortalization screamed in shock and regret. Grand Celestial Venerate. Exclamations erupted in several forbidden zones at the same time. This was a cry of shock and horror, a cry of extreme fear. The exclamations spread throughout the entire Big Dipper. Grand Celestial Venerate? What kind of existence is that? Why are the Supremes of the Forbidden Zones so scared? The people who heard the exclamations were extremely shocked. Looking at the white-robed figure in front of the road of immortalization, their hearts were in turmoil. Even the Supremes of the Forbidden Zones were terrified. What kind of extraordinary existence was that? He must be an existence whose might surpassed the emperors of old. He actually provoked the Grand Celestial Venerate. Those people, I'm afraid they're all dead. Will the Grand Celestial Venerate attack us? What should we do? Damn it. Why is the Grand Celestial Venerate still alive? How can he exist forever? He's in existence even older than the ninth Celestial Venerate of the Age of Legends. Why is such a person still alive? In the Forbidden Zones, the ancient emperors who hadn't made a move were already scared out of their wits and couldn't sit still. Especially the ancient emperors who'd started the dark chaos and harmed the world. Their faces were pale, and their hearts were trembling. Although these ancient emperors didn't know much about the Grand Empyrean, who had been active in the chaotic ancient era, the Grand Empyrean. However, just the rumored destructive power of the Grand Celestial Venerate was enough to send chills down one's spine. Since ancient times, in order to prolong his life, the ancient emperor of the Forbidden Zone unleashed dark chaos. He massacred all under heaven, devoured all life, and wreaked havoc on the common people. His white robe fluttered as he stood in the air. His mighty voice reverberated throughout the world. Today, I'll flatten the 6 great forbidden zones, put down the source of calamity, and return the world to the world. The heavenly sound was vast and mighty, sounding like thunder. The entire Big Dipper constellation trembled at this announcement. So the darkness turmoil was caused by the ancient emperor of the Forbidden Zone devouring life force. Damn it, these ancient emperors are trash. Upon hearing Li Yu's announcement, everyone in the Big Dipper constellation understood the source of the dark turmoil. Thinking back to the legend where 9 out of 10 houses were empty and all living things were exterminated, everyone couldn't help but gnash their teeth. The Grand Empyrean is actually so ruthless? Damn it, we had no choice. If we don't devour life force, are we just going to sit here and wait for death? Go, hurry up and leave. Leave the Big Dipper constellation quickly. Li Yu's announcement shocked and enraged the ancient emperors of the Forbidden Zones. Rumble. The Forbidden Zones shook violently. The 6 great Forbidden Zones rose from the ground and were about to break through the void and escape. However, rumble. The ancient Desolation Tower exploded with brilliant light, suppressing the Forbidden Zones that were trying to escape. Damn it! The ancient Desolation Tower has sealed the void. The Forbidden Zones that had just flown up were suppressed by the ancient Desolation Tower and returned to their original positions. Grand Empyrean, don't you go too far. So what if you're an ancient heavenly Empyrean? If you want to take our lives, we'll have to see how capable you are. With nowhere to run, the ancient emperors and ancient emperors in the Forbidden Zones were all grimacing. They were ready to fight to the death. Dang! A mighty chime of a bell resounded through the clouds. Brilliant golden light shot across the sky like a rainbow. The white-robed figure stepped on the golden rainbow and walked forward step by step. This golden rainbow continued to extend, descending from the void towards the Sea of Reincarnation. Damn it! The ancient emperor of the Sea of Reincarnation roared furiously. Grand Empyrean, do you really want to make all the Forbidden Zones your enemy? The ancient emperor of the Sea of Reincarnation's intention was clear. He wanted the other Forbidden Zones to join forces and resist the Grand Empyrean. Don't waste your energy. They won't dare to come. Li Yu smiled and shook his head. His figure flashed, and he entered the Sea of Reincarnation. The ancient emperor, who has lived for countless years, is more afraid of death than anyone else. Before seeing my strength clearly, how could they dare to take the risk? And you, of course, are the one who tested me. The Sea of Reincarnation was a world of its own, vast and boundless. The silver light rippled like waves, rolling up a surging tide, forming a vast and boundless sea of silver light. It seemed to be even larger than the entire eastern wasteland. Li Yu's figure entered the sea of silver light and walked on the waves. With one step, the sea was clear and the sea was calm. All the silver waves instantly calmed under Li Yu's feet. Even the silver waves of the Sea of Reincarnation didn't dare to move under Li Yu's might. Grand Empyrean, do you really think I'm a pushover? The ancient emperor of the Sea of Reincarnation roared, and the sea of silver light shook violently. Rumble. A huge ancient tree rushed out from the sea of silver light. The ancient tree seemed to be connected to the depths of the universe. The sun, moon, and stars were arranged at the top of the ancient tree. They shone brightly and had a towering aura. Reincarnation into silence. Return to the origin. A middle-aged man in black robes rushed out from the top of the ancient tree. His silver eyes shone with silver light. The silver-eyed man held a sheep-fat white jade bottle in his hand, and a vast and boundless power rushed out from the bottle. Rumble. The silver light that filled the entire sea of reincarnation surged up and rushed into the bottle in the silver-eyed man's hands. In an instant, the silver waves that filled the entire sea of reincarnation converged into the bottle. The vast silver ocean disappeared without a trace. Rise! The silver-eyed man waved his hand, and the towering tree flew up with a whistling sound. It turned into a branch and inserted itself into the white jade bottle. Are you ready? Liu stood with his hands behind his back and smiled at the silver-eyed man. Then let's begin. Grand Empyrean, you're too arrogant. The silver-eyed man raised the bottle, his eyes filled with endless coldness. You have to know that I was once a heavenly Empyrean too. Rumble. There was a roar in the void, and the silver-eyed man's figure instantly rushed up, turning into a ray of light that flew at an extremely fast speed. He was extremely fast. The silver-eyed man's speed had exceeded the limits of speed. It seemed to have surpassed the speed of light. Even time was distorted and reversed in front of this extreme speed. So, it's the creator of the dimension's secret word, unfettered heavenly Empyrean. Liu smiled and extended a finger. A strange radiance bloomed at the tip of his finger. Freeze. Time and space flowed. Freeze all things in the world. Everything returned to stillness. This was no longer the original fixed body art. This was Liu's order law. In front of the law, no matter how fast one was, it was useless. Even if one surpassed the speed of light, it was still within the law of heaven and earth. With a point of his finger, everything returned to stillness. Your heavenly Empyrean can't be compared to mine. Liu smiled and waved his hand. Unfettered heavenly Empyrean instantly fell into the resource storage. How is this possible? How can he be so strong? How can a Grand Empyrean be so strong? This is unfettered heavenly Empyrean, one of the 9 heavenly Empyreans of the myth. He was crushed to death with a finger? Are we ants in front of a Grand Empyrean? What realm is a Grand Empyrean? All the restricted zone supreme beings who were watching this scene were scared out of their wits. Chapter 520. Only unfettered heavenly venerable is left in the sea of reincarnation. After killing unfettered heavenly venerable, Liu looked at the empty sea of reincarnation and shook his head. He stepped out of the entrance of the sea of reincarnation and returned to the eastern wilderness. The sea of reincarnation has been destroyed. Liu stood in the void and pressed his palm down on the sea of reincarnation. Boom! There was a loud explosion. The sky collapsed and the earth caved in. The space where the sea of reincarnation was flattened by Liu's palm and turned into chaos. This is... The sea of reincarnation has been destroyed by the Grand Heavenly Venerable, a great undertaking that has never been seen before. The Grand Heavenly Venerable is meritorious. Seeing Liu appear in the void and destroy the sea of reincarnation with one palm, the crowd was filled with joy. Seeing this, the cultivators were overjoyed and excited. For countless years, all the great emperors of the human race had made it their life's goal to destroy the life of reincarnation. However, the life of reincarnation was too strong. Even the great emperors could not fight against so many. Hung Yu, Su Kong, Wu Shi, and the other great emperors had fought for their entire lives. Although their battle records were glorious, they had not truly destroyed the life of reincarnation. The various life of reincarnation still existed to this day as if they had existed for eternity. However, the Grand Heavenly Venerable had destroyed the sea of reincarnation with a wave of his hand and created an unprecedented achievement. A finger could cover the sky and suppress eternity. The Grand Heavenly Venerable had shocked the world with his power alone. The supreme ancient emperors of the various life of reincarnation zones were all silent under this power. The might of the Grand Heavenly Venerable had never been seen before. Long live the Heavenly Venerable. The Heavenly Venerable is invincible. Countless cultivators in the Big Dipper constellation were excited and cheered. The rest of the Forbidden Zones fell silent, unable to speak. Evil must be eradicated. After destroying the sea of reincarnation with one strike, Liyu's conquest had just begun. Mighty divine light swept across the land. The black and white Tai Chi Yin-Yang fish covered the entire sky like a curtain. Immortal Mausoleum. A mausoleum placed here is truly an eyesore. Liyu looked at the Immortal Mausoleum, the Forbidden Zone, and a cold smile appeared on his face. Then let's just flatten it. With a swipe of his hand, the intertwining black and white light transformed into a massive palm. Boom! Mountains collapsed and the earth cracked. The earth quaked and the mountains shook. With a grab of the gigantic palm, the vast Immortal Mausoleum was directly pulled out. One mountain range after another soared into the sky. The Immortal Mausoleum was grabbed by Li Yu's gigantic hand and pulled into the sky. Grand Empyrean, are you really going to be so ruthless? Two figures rushed out of the Immortal Mausoleum that Li Yu had taken into the air. Emperors might shook the heavens and earth. These two figures were the two ancient emperors. One of the ancient emperors was an old woman with a phoenix coronet and a red cloak. The other person was an old man with a gloomy expression. Fellow Taoists, are you just going to watch that old bastard Taishang do whatever he wants? The sea of reincarnation has already been destroyed, and our Immortal Mausoleum will not be able to escape from his evil hands. Now it's your turn. The old man opened up a large, colorful umbrella and stared at Liu with vigilance while yelling at the other life forbidden zones. That's right. The old woman pulled out a phoenix hairpin from her hair. With a shake of her hand, it transformed into a three-pronged spike that glowed with jade light. If we don't join forces, we will be defeated one by one. In the end, we will all be killed by that old bastard Taishang. Let's join forces. The old woman shouted as she raised the spike that glowed with jade light in her hand. However, despite their repeated calls, the other ancient emperors in the other forbidden zones did not move. Old bastard Taishang, it won't be that easy for you to take out our Immortal Mausoleum. Without any reinforcements, the two supreme ancient emperors in the Immortal Mausoleum could only fight with their lives on the line. The five-colored ancient umbrella in the old man's hand exploded with a dazzling light. Immortal Mausoleum? You cowards on your last legs are worthy of being called immortals? Liu sneered as he waved his hand and slapped at the Immortal Mausoleum that was in the air. Universe-toppling palm. Rumble. An earth-shattering sound rang out as the huge palm that blotted out the sun slammed into the Immortal Mausoleum. Destroyed. Crushed. Annihilated. With a single slap, the entire Immortal Mausoleum was reduced to dust. Another forbidden zone was destroyed by Li Yu. Too powerful. Too terrifying. The might of a heavenly venerate is unparalleled in this world. Such power shocked everyone in the world. The supreme ancient emperors in the forbidden zones were also shocked. This was no ordinary mountain range. This was a forbidden zone. Every forbidden zone was a mystical place in this part of the universe. They had been refined by the ancient emperors for countless years and possessed unparalleled power. Even if the ancient emperors could destroy stars and galaxies with a wave of their hands, it would not be so easy to destroy a forbidden zone. The Grand Heavenly Venerate's attack had reduced the Immortal Mausoleum to dust. Wasn't that too shocking? You've gone too far. The old woman and the old man erupted at the same time. The jade light spike and the five-colored ancient umbrella shone brightly as destructive power erupted. Gone too far, Liu shook his head. Does destroying the Immortal Mausoleum count as bullying? With a smile, he raised his hand. Two rays of light, one black and one white, circled around his hand, forming a black and white Dachira flower out of thin air. This is bullying you. With a flick of his finger, the mandara of light and darkness whistled through the air. Light and darkness alternated as yin and yang circulated. Vast power covered the sky and covered the earth, enveloping the old woman and the old man. Do you think we are pushovers? We are ancient emperors too. The old man roared. The five-colored ancient umbrella shone brightly as it blasted towards the mandara of light and darkness. Clear blue sky. The jade light spike in the old woman's hand shone brightly. It was like the blue sky, vast and deep. However, it was meaningless. The yin and yang energies brushed past each other. Order collapsed, and Tao laws were annihilated. The attacks of the two instantly dissipated, turning into heaven and earth yuan qi. Order was the foundation of laws. The yin and yang energies brushed past each other and annihilated their Tao laws, erasing the laws within. The attacks of the old woman and the old man were instantly destroyed. Seal. Light and darkness alternated as the huge datura flower enveloped them. The petals closed, enveloping the old woman and the old man, sealing them in the mandara enchantment. The Taiji heavenly prison was like a butcher's knife. Evil deeds are doomed to destruction. You cannot be allowed to live. With a flick of his sleeve, the mandara of light and darkness turned into a black and white crystal and kept it in the resource vault. The immortal mausoleum was leveled. Two supreme ancient emperors were dead. Invincible heavenly venerables. Invincible heavenly venerables. The Big Dipper starfield cheered as countless cultivators clapped their hands in joy, pursuing immortality, 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 and indestructibility. There is nothing wrong with that. However, in order to pursue immortality, you brought calamity to the world and exterminated all life. That is unforgivable. Liyu's figure stood in the air. His towering aura shook the heavens. In an instant, he had destroyed two great forbidden zones. One finger and one palm. Unstoppable. Such might cause the remaining four life forbidden zones to keep quiet out of fear. Supreme Ancient Emperor's heart was filled with shock. Just how strong is the Grand Empyrean? Chapter 5:21. Four left. After destroying the Reincarnation Sea and the Immortal Mausoleum, there were still four forbidden zones left. Primordium Ancient Mine, Sky Burial Island, Ruins of God, and Undying Mountain. Of these four forbidden zones, the Ruins of God was the ancient heavenly court's southern heaven gate. The other three had even more extraordinary origins. There are some good things in these four forbidden zones. I can't destroy them with a slap. Liu stood in the air. The Tai Chi Yin-Yang fish above his head shook slightly. Mighty Yin and Yang Chi swept through the world like a tidal wave. Grand Empyrean, do you really think we are pushovers? An angry roar shook the world. Boom! Streaks of light shot out from the life forbidden zone one after another. 8 pillars of light shot out from the Primordium Ancient Mine. 8 ancient emperors appeared at the same time. At the same time, 5 pillars of light appeared from Sky Burial Island. 3 pillars of light appeared from the Ruins of God, and 3 pillars of light appeared from the Undying Mountain. A total of 19 ancient emperors and ancient emperors. What kind of terrifying power was this when 19 great emperors joined forces? This was unprecedented since ancient times. Everything in the world, all living beings in the world, trembled under this power, trembling under this power. There was a tremor in the void, as though the entire world couldn't withstand this power. Grand Empyrean, you are indeed powerful. However, no matter how strong you are doomed today. 3 ancient emperors stepped out from the Ruins of God. Boom! A huge, majestic immortal gate suddenly shot up. It was dazzling. The Ruins of God, which was also the Southern Heaven Gate, slowly rose behind the 3 of them. Dazzling light filled the sky. Divine inscriptions covered the sky densely. A divine array appeared, and its aura shook the sky and earth. What do you think we have been waiting for? The 3 ancient emperors stood proudly in the Undying Mountain. Their might shook the world. The pitch-black, undying mountain rushed up with a rumble and floated in the air. Lights swirled in the sky, and Tao laws intertwined to form a huge divine formation. Granaparian, today is the day you die. This will be your burial ground. The primordium ancient mine shot up into the sky. 8 ancient emperors stood on the ancient mine. Light filled the sky. Dragons and tigers leaped, and killing intent filled the air. Origin ancient mine erupted with brilliant radiance, as if the stars in the heavens were shining. Stellar rivers swirled about in the sky, the brilliance resplendent. Endless divine runes and Tao laws intertwined, and another divine formation appeared. 4 great life forbidden zones and 19 great emperors. Who in the world can stop them? With a rumbling sound, the burial sky island broke through the clouds, revealing its mysterious true appearance in front of the world. The 9 winding mountain ranges were like 9 winding dragons soaring into the sky. At the end of the mountain range, there was a huge rectangular island. The entire sky burial island was shaped like a coffin pulled by 9 dragons. A vast and mysterious aura covered the sky and the earth, shaking the void. Countless divine runes revolved as a huge divine formation materialized in the void. 5 great emperors wielded monarch weapons as they surrounded Yifutian. Immortal slaying sword formation. A gigantic formation diagram shot up into the sky, covering the sky above the 4 life forbidden zones. Divine runes interweaved and Tao laws circulated. Endless killing intent soared into the sky. The number 1 killing array of the immemorial era, UC, was displayed. Clang, 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 clang. The shrill sound of the swords soared into the sky, stirring up the clouds and changing the color of heaven and earth. The heart-palpitating killing intent surged like a raging tide. The sky was blood-red, and the smell of blood assailed one's nostrils. It was like a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood. The 4 great forbidden zones were also dyed in the color of blood. Endless blood light circulated as if a murderous calamity was imminent. It was frightening. Above the 4 life forbidden zones, 4 dark red longswords appeared, exuding an eerie coldness and endless killing intent. These are not real swords. They were just imprints of the immortal slaying sword that were condensed from killing intent. However, even though they were phantoms, they exuded an unstoppable aura that could slay immortals and emperors. There was nothing that could not be cut, and nothing could not be destroyed. They were the 4 immortal slaying swords, the most terrifying weapons in the world. Heavenly Lord Lingbao's immortal slaying sword formation could kill immortals and emperors. This was a sword formation that had truly killed a great emperor. Legend had it that the 4 immortal slaying swords had even drunk the blood of immortals. Heavenly Lord Lingbao's immortal slaying sword formation? Liu looked at the scene of slaughter and the 19 great emperors with murderous intent. He was still relaxed and did not care at all. The formation is not bad. Unfortunately, there is only the formation diagram and not the real 4 immortal slaying swords. That's all there is to it. Liu looked at the immortal slaying sword formation diagram hanging high in the sky and shook his head with a smile. This is your trump card. The 19 great emperors working together with the immortal slaying sword formation diagram is indeed a powerful force. However, it's nothing in front of me. Roar, 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 roar. In the primordium ancient mine, the ancient emperor of 10,000 dragons, ancient emperor of white tiger, ancient emperor of blood phoenix, ancient emperor of golden gold, and the other 4 supremes, including the corpse emperor, all ascended at the same time and unleashed the full power of a great emperor. At the same time, the 3 sovereigns of the divine ruins, the 3 sovereigns of the undying mountain, and the 5 sovereigns of the burial sky island also ascended at the same time and unleashed their strongest power. Grand Heavenly Lord, even if you are an ancient supreme, you will fall today. The 19 ancient emperors ascended at the same time, and regained their strongest fighting strength. They activated the immortal slaying sword formation diagram and brandished their emperor weapons as they charged towards Liu. At this moment, their auras were overwhelming and their killing intent was overwhelming. The Heavenly Lord is surrounded by the 4 great life forbidden zones. The 19 great emperors working together is too terrifying. The Heavenly Lord is in danger. Seeing this scene, everyone's hearts were filled with fear as their hearts clenched fiercely. Grand Heavenly Lord, let us send you on your way. 19 beams of divine light shot into the sky, tearing the clouds apart and destroying the world. The immortal slaying sword formation exploded at the same time, and blood-red killing intent shook the world. Under this power, the world collapsed, space-time was destroyed, and everything returned to chaos. Even the sky was collapsing. If not for the ancient desolate tower holding down the Big Dipper constellation, the countless galaxies and galaxies around the Big Dipper constellation would have been smashed to smithereens. No one was able to block this attack. All the great emperors present were very confident. The 19 great emperors used the immortal slaying sword formation to gather all their strength and unleash their strongest attack. No one could withstand it. Indeed, no one can withstand this attack. But I'm an immortal. Immortals were already on another level of life. In all the heavens and realms, only I reign supreme. Liu roared. He raised his hand, clenched his fist, and swung it. Fist of the Sovereign. As he punched out, the 5 elements were born, the 8 trigrams were born, yin and yang were split, and Tai Chi circulated. It was like the first ray of light that bloomed in the world at the beginning of chaos. Yin and yang manifested here, and laws were born here. This wasn't just martial Tao or fist technique, but order and laws. Under this punch, heaven and earth were reshaped, and laws were reborn. Like a comb combing through a head of messy hair, everything returned to order. It returned to Liu's order. It was loud and clear. This punch didn't cause an earth-shattering explosion, nor did it have the power to destroy heaven and earth. It was like a breeze blowing across the surface of the water, causing ripples. However, in the ripples, the immortal slaying sword formation was destroyed. The divine light, gathered by the joint attack of the 19 great emperors, was annihilated silently. The strongest attack of 19 great emperors had been destroyed so easily. This is impossible. No one can do this. No one can defeat our joint attack. This is impossible. The great emperors in the 4 life forbidden zones were shocked and shouted in disbelief. Why is it impossible? Liu smiled and raised his hand. The intertwining black and white light covered the sky. Haven't you always wanted to become an immortal? Haven't you always wanted to know what an immortal is? He reached out and pressed down. The Taiji diagram pressed down like the sky, suppressing the 4 life forbidden zones and the 19 great emperors in the Taiji diagram. This is an immortal. Liu stepped onto the Taiji diagram and stood with his hands behind his back. He was more brilliant than the starry sky and more glorious than the sun and moon. The heavenly venerable is invincible. At this moment, everyone in the world shouted excitedly and bowed deeply to the ground. Some people with 0 fan points appeared in the book review section, and they kept criticizing this and that. It was fine if they read pirated copies, but they still criticized after reading pirated copies. Could they be more shameless? Chapter 5:22. Suppressing 19 ancient emperors with 1 strike. The Grand Empyrean's divine might was unrivaled throughout history. Everyone who saw this scene was shocked to the extreme. They were intimidated by this shocking divine might and couldn't help but kneel on the ground. Absorb. With a wave of his hand, the Taiji diagram turned into a beam of light and fell into his hand. The 19 great emperors were all kept in the resource warehouse. Their lives were in Liu's hands. 19 ancient emperors. Another great harvest. Just the 19 great emperors were a great harvest, not to mention the great emperors themselves. Apart from that, the 4 life forbidden zones were also great harvests. The ruins of deity is the ancient heavenly court's southern heavenly gate. It's an ultimate treasure in itself. There's also the immortal peach herb in the ruins of deity. With a point of his finger, the yin and yang energies shrouded the entire ruins of deity, sealing it into a black and white crystal. With a wave of his hand, the ruins of deity were kept in the resource warehouse. The immortal peach herb could be planted in the immortal residence's garden. The southern heavenly gate could also be placed in the shopping center as another immortal residence. The undying mountain is even more extraordinary. The undying mountain was an ancient sacred mountain in this universe. It was very special. The enlightenment ancient tea tree could only grow in the undying mountain. It couldn't grow anywhere else. Apart from that, there was also a creation divine spring in the undying mountain. This was even stronger than the divine spring in the ancient desolate forbidden zone. Not only did it have the power to revive the dead, but it also contained the power of creation. It could nurture life and create living beings. Such a good thing should be kept in the shopping center. With another point of his finger, the yin-yang mandara flower bloomed. The undying mountain was sealed into a crystal and kept in the resource warehouse. The enlightenment ancient tea tree and the creation divine spring. When the time came, he could boil a pot of tea and lie in the immortal residence's garden to enjoy it. How comfortable would that be? The absolute beginning ancient mind isn't much. It's just that there are enough divine sources and immortal sources. There's also the absolute beginning life stone. These things are mainly used to seal one's body and prevent life from flowing away. It's not very useful to me. Liu looked at the absolute beginning ancient mind. With a wave of his hand, he sealed the absolute beginning ancient mind and kept it in the resource warehouse. Although it wasn't very useful, it was still useful to nourish the dragon veins in the shopping mall and increase the concentration of spiritual energy in the shopping mall. The immortal extermination formation is also a good thing. With a wave of his hand, the immortal extermination formation instantly shrank, turning into a beam of red light that fell into Li Yu's hand. The immortal slaying formation is the pinnacle of Ling Bao's attainments in the Tao of formations. It represents the highest level of the Tao of formations in this world. Li Yu also felt that this immortal extermination array diagram had some reference value. With a wave of his hand, the immortal extermination array diagram was also stored in the resource vault. The 4 immortal slaying swords. Yi Fan had once seized an immortal slaying sword from the galaxy, formed by the body of the heavenly sovereign Ling Bao. Of the other 3 swords, one was in 6-eared macaque's hands, and the other 2 were nowhere to be found. The formation diagram is the foundation. The immortal exterminating 4 swords are merely 4 monarch weapons filled with killing intent. Li Yu had no intention of collecting the 4 immortal exterminating swords. Swords at the level of monarch weapons were not that attractive. His Heaven Splitter sword was much stronger. All that's left is the Sky Burial Island. Looking up at the huge floating island in the air, Li Yu nodded slightly. Heavenly Emperor Huang cut off a section of the ancient Mount Tai and used it to refine the 9 dragons pulling the coffin. This Sky Burial Island is a part of the ancient Mount Tai and is also the foundation for refining the 9 dragons pulling the coffin. The Sky Burial Island was also known as the Heavens. The ancient Mount Tai was originally a divine mountain in this universe, and with the refinement of Heavenly Emperor Huang. Even if the Sky Burial Island in front of him was only the foundation of the 9 dragons pulling the coffin, it was still very extraordinary. Something left behind by Heavenly Emperor Huang, the foundation used to refine the 9 dragons pulling the coffin. This thing is very useful. Li wanted to set up a shopping center in this world. In the heavens, the 9 dragons pulling the coffin was the most suitable place. Using the 9 dragons pulling the coffin as materials to build a shopping center in the heavens. Was there anything more suitable than this? Why was the Sky Burial Island called the Heavens? This was because this vast, boundless island was a floating island. It was a floating island floating in the void. Let's keep it first. The yin and yang qi rotated, and the boundless Sky Burial Island was sealed by Li Yu and stored in the resource vault. At this point, all the avatars in the sky had dissipated. The overwhelming blood-red killing array was gone, and the 4 life forbidden zones that covered the sky and covered the earth were gone. The 19 Thearchs, who had dominated the world since ancient times, had joined forces, but they had also disappeared. Only the white-robed and golden-crowned figure was left standing in the sky, his mighty divine light illuminating the world. It was dazzling and incomparable. Congratulations to the Grand Heavenly Venerable for clearing out the life forbidden zones and achieving great feats. At this moment, everyone in the world shouted in unison and bowed deeply to the ground. The Heavenly Venerable's divine might is invincible, the only one in history. At this moment, the Lotus Thearch put away the ancient desolate pagoda that sealed the Big Dipper constellation and came before Li Yu in a flash, bowing deeply with a face full of admiration. Sweeping away the evildoers, sweeping away the shadows. You have contributed a lot too. Li Yu nodded at the Lotus Thearch. If you had not sealed the Big Dipper constellation, I would have had to search for these life forbidden zones one by one. It would not have been as smooth as it is now. The Heavenly Venerable's great feats are in front of you. My meager efforts are not worth mentioning. Although the Lotus Thearch was humble, he was still delighted when he heard Li Yu's praise. This was the Grand Heavenly Venerable. He had cleared out the life forbidden zones, suppressed 19 Thearchs with one strike, and was invincible in history. How rare was it to be praised by such a person? The Lotus Thearch should be proud to receive such praise. The Heavenly Venerable has cleared out the world and ended the dark chaos. Your merits are boundless. The Lotus Thearch bowed and congratulated Li Yu. Since I have come to this world, I naturally have to clear out these malignant tumors. Li Yu smiled at the Lotus Thearch. Although the life forbidden zones in the Big Dipper constellation have been cleared out, there are still some loose ends in outer space that need to be cleaned up. The Heavenly Venerable, are you talking about the underworld and the tyrant body's ancestral planet? These 2 places are indeed scourges. The Lotus Thearch nodded and bowed to Li Yu. I am not talented, but I am willing to follow the Heavenly Venerable to conquer the world and clean up the universe. Good. Since you have such intentions, come with me. Li Yu waved his hand, and a teleportation gate appeared in front of him. Let's go. The 2 stepped into the teleportation gate, and light flashed. In the blink of an eye, they arrived at a vast and gloomy constellation. The sky was gloomy, and the cold and silent heaven and earth exuded endless eeriness. This was the underworld. Greetings, Heavenly Venerable. Wang Shu, the Yellow Thearchs, the Qilin, and the Black Tortoise saw Li Yu appear with the Lotus Thearch and hurriedly bowed to Li Yu. The Heavenly Venerable's great feats have benefited the world. We admire you greatly. Xian Yuan and Shen Nong cupped their fists and bowed. They were full of admiration for Li Yu's actions of clearing out the life forbidden zones in the Big Dipper constellation. The life forbidden zones have been wreaking havoc for a long time, and I only managed to clear them out today. I have returned too late, and I feel guilty. Li Yu pretended to sigh. It's all the younger generation's fault. There's no need for the Heavenly Venerable to blame yourself. Hearing Li Yu's words, everyone present blushed. Legend had it that the Grand Celestial Venerable was of the same generation as the Huangtian Thearch. These life forbidden zones were all caused by the younger generation. How could the Grand Celestial Venerable be blamed? The Heavenly Venerable is indeed virtuous. As expected of a senior expert, a virtuous saint, everyone's admiration for Li Yu deepened. Li Yu's image in everyone's hearts rose to another level. All right, this was just a pretentious person's habit. Chapter 523. The Underworld, the home of all living beings. Li Yu looked up at the vast underworld. He shook his head and sighed. Transcending tribulation, Empyrean Chao Yuxing. He once fought alongside Heavenly Emperor Huang, and was also a hero of his generation. I didn't expect to leave behind such a disaster. Heavenly Lord Chao Yuxing. also known as Duanda. He was an ancient heavenly lord when he was alive. After his death, his physical body mutated and he became the emperor of the underworld. The emperor of the underworld wanted to live forever. He studied the cycle of life and death and the method of reincarnation in order to attain immortality. He created the underworld. Perhaps it was because he died for too long in the process of reincarnation, or because the emperor of the underworld had achieved his goal of using the underworld to study the cycle of reincarnation. He no longer cared about the underworld. The underworld gradually broke away from the emperor of the underworld's control. Some ancient emperors also joined the underworld, making the underworld another forbidden zone for living beings. The underworld's soldiers crossed the border and exterminated all living beings. A place like this shouldn't exist. With a pull, Liu broke open the boundary of the underworld and revealed the vast and dark underworld shrouded in fog in front of everyone. This is the underworld. The people following behind Liu couldn't help but frown when they saw the vast expanse of pitch-black land of misfortune, the surging river of blood, and the ominous aura that permeated the air. Countless soldiers and corpse soldiers roamed around the black, wretched earth. After everyone stepped onto the underworld, Liu didn't reveal his own aura. However, the vast emperor's aura of the others couldn't be concealed. Kakik. Under the awe of the emperor's aura, the soldiers and corpse soldiers roared in fear and fled in panic. After a while, the underworld fell into a dead silence. All the soldiers and corpse soldiers lay on the ground, not daring to move at all. The emperor's aura was naturally not something these soldiers and corpse soldiers, who didn't have intelligence and only had the instincts of beasts, could resist. After strolling through the underworld, everyone soon arrived in front of a majestic palace that reached into the clouds. Sky Sovereign, why have you brought so many people here? When Liu and the others arrived in front of the pitch-black palace, the huge palace doors opened with a rumbling sound. Several figures with vast auras stepped out. A tall figure wearing nether iron battle armor stood in front of the door, holding a spear in one hand and a shield in the other. This was the prison keeper emperor of the underworld. Beside this person, there were three strange and tall figures surrounded by thick black fog. Nothing else. I'm just going to wipe out the underworld. Liu raised his head and looked at the four people in front of him. His gaze stopped on a monster with a green face and sharp fangs. There were three sarcomas on his head that formed the shape of a mountain. He looked like a terrifying monster. Sky-piercing dark artifact? Sure enough, it is an immortal artifact. Liu didn't care about this monster at all, but he took a second look at the black treasure wheel. There weren't many immortal artifacts in this world. Other than the ancient tower, the immortal bell, and the green cauldron, there was only this nether artifact wheel. The undying heavenly blade hadn't returned to the undying emperor yet, so it wasn't a real immortal artifact. The bell of no beginning hadn't returned to the emperor of no beginning, so it hadn't become an immortal artifact yet. This nether artifact wheel was one of the few immortal artifacts in this world. Wipe out the underworld? The prison keeper emperor chuckled and shook his head. Sky Sovereign, do you really think you're invincible just because you wiped out the Forbidden Zone in the Big Dipper starfield? The underworld isn't a pushover. Buzz! The pitch-black nether treasure wheel violently shook, and the entire underworld rumbled. Endless nether chi soared up and merged with the nether treasure wheel, turning into a single entity. A chilly wind howled. It was bone-chilling. Endless death chi filled the entire space. Heaven and earth returned to ruins, and everything died. The underworld revealed its true colors as a land of death. The boundless death chi shrouded over, exterminating all life and annihilating all life. It was as if it wanted to wipe out all life in the world. The underworld has been buried for countless epochs. It's the land of death for all life. It gathers all the nether chi in this world. The prison keeper emperor sneered at Liu. Grand Empyrean, no matter how powerful you are, can you fight against all the nether chi in this world? Wipe out the underworld? All of you will die in the underworld. Rumble. The ghosts controlling the nether artifact exploded with all their strength, and the vast death chi caused the entire underworld to rumble. Cracks appeared on the black underworld, and countless cracks intertwined to form a boundless array that covered the entire underworld. Reincarnation Array Rise. The Prison Keeper Emperor and the other two figures shrouded in black mist unleashed all their strength at the same time, activating this ancient and powerful array. I am the origin god. The black mist dispersed, revealing a glorious figure that looked like a god. I am the origin ghost. The other voice that dispersed the black mist was covered in long black hair, which was exactly the same as the ominous curse of the great success Saint Physique in his later years. I am the spirit of the nether artifact. The ghosts raised the nether artifact treasure wheel and roared at the sky. Prison Keeper Strength Reincarnation. The Prison Keeper Emperor smashed the pitch-black ghost face shield heavily on the ground, and the reincarnation array that covered the entire underworld instantly exploded with endless black light. Cold, dead silence. Reincarnation, eternal oblivion. The boundless reincarnation array began to operate, and a force of reincarnation swept across the entire underworld like a volcanic eruption. This force, when the people behind Liu sensed this power that seemed to want to drag their souls into the cycle of reincarnation, making it impossible for them to escape, their faces instantly changed. We control reincarnation, and all life is in reincarnation. No one can escape. The Prison Keeper Emperor raised the long spear in his hand and roared with a ferocious expression. Grand Empyrean, the reincarnation array has been activated. Souls will be trapped in reincarnation, forever oblivion. You are all dead. Reincarnation array? Liyu's body bloomed with divine light, and a sacred and glorious pure land opened up in the pitch-black underworld. This should be a great array created by the Emperor of the Underworld when he was researching the reincarnation technique. The Emperor of the Underworld was creative, and it really allowed him to create a path of immortality. Liu didn't care about this reincarnation array at all. The so-called souls will be trapped in reincarnation, forever oblivion, was essentially a kind of hallucinatory force that worked on the souls. When the false is real, the real is fake. When this hallucinatory force constructed an endless reincarnation, it made people immersed in it and unable to transcend, and it could indeed achieve eternal oblivion. However, Liu is already an immortal in the mortal world. It was impossible for Liu to confuse Liu and make Liu fall into the reincarnation illusion with his soul cultivation alone. The reincarnation array is only SOSO. Liu sneered at the hell-suppressing emperor and the other three. He slowly raised his arm and said, "My will is the will of the heavens. If I want to destroy the underworld, who can stop me?" The dual polarity array is called annihilation, and the 5-element combination is called Xianhuang. With a long chant, Liu waved his hand and struck out with his palm. A 5-colored brilliance shot into the sky, and the 5 elements and 5 colors circulated endlessly. Grand 5 elements polarity array of annihilation, divine light. The 5-colored brilliance was like a vast ocean, and it instantly engulfed the entire underworld. Under this destructive force, the underworld that had been buried for countless eras and gathered the power of the underworld, the pitch-black land, the blood-red rivers, everything was annihilated and destroyed. The Xianhuang Qi was the origin of all matter. All matter in the underworld was annihilated and decomposed, and everything returned to nothingness. The underworld that had existed for billions of years had disappeared. Annihilation of the underworld with a single strike. Chapter 524. How is this possible? The underworld earth was annihilated and turned into nothingness. Their foundation was destroyed in an instant. The Hell Suppression Emperor and the 3 ghosts were so shocked that they cried out in disbelief. Using an immortal artifact to drive the reincarnation array and mobilize the power of the underworld earth. This was the foundation of the underworld earth's power. Who in the world could stop it by gathering all the underworld Earth's power? The Grand Empyrean's attack destroyed the entire underworld Earth? How could there be such a powerful force? How could there be such a powerful force in this world? Gathering all the underworld Earth's power was equivalent to the power of heaven and earth. A human could go against heaven and earth? How is this possible? The underworld Earth gathers the underworld Earth's power. It's indeed extraordinary. However, I once trampled the heavens, trampling the heavens and destroying the Tao, stepping on heaven and earth, riding above heaven and earth. Liu pressed down with his hand. The black and white Tai Chi Yin Yang fish pressed down, suppressing the Hell Suppression Emperor and the three ghosts. So, I'm an immortal. No, this is impossible. How can you be an immortal? The immortal region is damaged, and immortals and mortals are not connected. If you become an immortal, how can you return to this world? The Hell Suppression Emperor shouted unwillingly, as if he was unwilling to admit his failure and refused to believe that there were immortals in this world. You know quite a lot. Liu smiled and grabbed with his hand. The Tai Chi Yin Yang fish spun endlessly, sealing the Hell Suppression Emperor and the three ghosts and keeping them in the resource vault. The Hell Suppression Emperor wasn't lying. If one entered the immortal region and used the immortal region's laws to become immortal and immortal, they wouldn't be able to enter the human world. From the immortal path of the flying immortal planet to the immortal region, the higher one's cultivation level was, the more they had to cleanse their own laws and convert all their power. However, there was a special kind of immortal in this world. They didn't rely on the immortal region's laws or the immortal region's immortal substance. Instead, they used their own power to condense the foundation of immortality. This kind of person was an immortal in the mortal world. Even in the immortal region, this kind of person was a top-notch existence. Liu's situation was even more special. The three treasures of essence, Qi, and spirit combined to trample the heavens and destroy the Tao, forming the two-substance and order Tao. At this level, one's body would have already become the source of life, and one would be able to break away from a world and live forever. As long as it wasn't a world with a particularly high level of power, Liu could even control the heavenly Tao and become the ruler of all things in the world. I've been a sovereign as well. Liu smiled, flicked his sleeves, and stood in the air. The divine might of the sky sovereign is invincible. The azure the arch, the Qilin, the black tortoise, the yellow the arch, and Wang Shu bowed to Liu. With a flip of his hand, he could create clouds and rain with a flip of his hand. With a single palm, the underworld that had existed for billions of years was reduced to nothingness. This kind of power had already exceeded everyone's imagination. The underworld was not like the starry sky outside. The starry sky was fragile. Even a saint-level expert could destroy a star with a single strike. A great emperor could even destroy a star region and a galaxy with a wave of his hand. However, the underworld was a place where the underworld gathered, and it was a part of the laws of heaven and earth. This wasn't something that any great emperor could destroy. Destroying the underworld was equivalent to destroying the laws of heaven and earth. Remarkable abilities, boundless magic power. At this moment, only these two words were left in everyone's minds. Destroying the underworld is a big gain. Other than the four great emperors, the biggest gain was the underworld artifact wheel. The underworld artifact wheel is a true immortal artifact. The Emperor of the Dead had created the underworld, and the underworld artifact was also created by him. After the Emperor of the Dead had reincarnated, the underworld artifact was out of his control, and the underworld artifact had fallen into the hands of others. For countless years, the underworld had gathered the power of the underworld to nourish the underworld artifact. Finally, this Tharch artifact had been upgraded to an immortal artifact. The power of reincarnation? This is not bad. With a flash of five-colored light, all the seals on the underworld artifact wheel were washed away. Liu looked at the so-called spirit of the underworld artifact in the resource vault and sneered. For billions of years, the underworld had done many experiments to research the path to immortality. This spirit of the underworld artifact is the product of the underworld's immortality experiments. The path of reincarnation, the path of corpses, the path of divine souls, and the path of weapons. This spirit of the underworld artifact was a monster that the underworld had created by combining the bloodlines and divine souls of countless experts into one and infusing them into the underworld artifact wheel. With the help of the underworld artifact wheel, this spirit of the underworld artifact could unleash the power of the great Emperor realm. It could be considered a supreme being. Since you want to be an artifact spirit so much, how can I not fulfill your wish? In the resource vault, the five-colored light rolled, and the spirit of the underworld artifact was instantly disintegrated. Then, according to the structure of an artifact spirit, it was reconstructed into the spirit of the underworld artifact wheel. Another immortal artifact had fallen into Li Yu's hands. The Overlord Ancestral Planet still needs to be dealt with. With a wave of his sleeve, Li Yu led everyone out of the annihilation of the underworld, returning to the Sea of Stars. Wipe out the underworld and destroy the life forbidden zone. The Heavenly Master is invincible. The Heavenly Master is the best throughout history. When Li Yu and the others returned to the Starry Sea, they could hear waves of cheers and congratulations coming from all directions. The destruction of the underworld had caused quite a commotion and naturally alarmed countless people. The Grand Celestial Lord had destroyed the life forbidden zone and wiped out the underworld. Such a great feat had shocked the world and made everyone bow down to him. All living beings bowed down to him and respect him. The Heavenly Master's fame is unparalleled, and his achievements are unprecedented. It is our honor to be able to serve the Heavenly Master. The Lotus Emperor and the others congratulated him again. I only did what I could. Li Yu smiled faintly. He had even been an overlord once and had experienced the worship of all living beings many times. Li Yu was already used to it. After reaching this stage, the little lad from back then had already become a big shot. His mentality had also gradually matured, and he had become steady and magnanimous. The Overlord Ancestral Planet still needs to be cleaned up. Let's go. Li Yu waved his hand and opened a teleportation gate. He led everyone out and instantly arrived at the Overlord Ancestral Planet. Greetings, Sky Sovereign. Great success, Saint Body Zhang Xian. Azure Sun Great Emperor. Purple Firmament Great Emperor, and Yifan hurriedly bowed when they saw Li Yu bringing everyone over. Li Yu had destroyed the life forbidden zone and wiped out the underworld. Such a heaven-shaking achievement had caused everyone to be convinced and admire him from the bottom of their hearts. These three great success tyrant bodies are also a scourge. Although the great success tyrant body was not a great emperor, it was similar to the great success saint body. It also had the qualifications to challenge the great emperor. These three fellows were not good people, and they were also involved in the dark turmoil. Then there's no need to talk nonsense with them. Just crush them to death. Li Yu raised his hand and pressed down on the Overlord Ancestral Planet. Black and white light intertwined, and the Taiji Yin and Yang fish pressed down like a curtain, enveloping an ancient mountain in the Overlord Ancestral Planet. Sky Sovereign, we are willing to turn over a new leaf. Sky Sovereign, please spare our lives. Li Yu had destroyed the life forbidden zone and wiped out the underworld. The three great success tyrant bodies had naturally seen the commotion. At this moment, seeing Li Yu's arrival and Li Yu's attack, the great success tyrant body hurriedly begged for mercy. If you knew this would happen, why did you do it in the first place? Li Yu did not have the slightest good impression of these three scum of the human race who not only did not stop the dark turmoil, but also participated in it themselves. Withdraw. The great ultimate heavenly prison sealed the tyrant body ancient mountain. With a flick of his sleeves, Li Yu took the mountain and the people into the resource vault. At this point, the calamity that had started the dark turmoil had been completely annihilated by Li Yu. Sky Sovereign's achievements are unparalleled, the only one in all of history. All living beings worshipped and respected. The name of the Supreme Sky Sovereign was praised by the entire world. Chapter 525. The Undying Heavenly Blade did not appear. The Undying Heavenly Blade had not appeared until Li Yu had pacified the world. At least you know what's good for you. Obviously, the Undying Heavenly Blade could only retreat under Li Yu's monstrous power. It did not dare to show its face at all. The Undying Heavenly Blade should have been taken back by the Undying Emperor. Li Yu turned his head and looked in the direction of the Big Dipper constellation. That means the Bell of No Beginning must have returned to no beginning. Li Yu's operation to pacify the Forbidden Zone, destroy the underworld, and suppress the mighty body had been successfully completed. The next step is the Flying Immortal Planet. Li Yu smiled. The Flying Immortal Planet is the real road to immortality, but the Venerable Emperor has also set up a trap there. Hee, the mastermind behind the scenes? How interesting. The Venerable Emperor could be said to be the biggest mastermind behind the scenes in this world, using heaven and earth as a furnace and all living beings as firewood. The Venerable Emperor wanted to refine the entire universe into a supreme fairy artifact. He had been planning for billions of years, just waiting for a few mortal immortals to appear and successfully refine it in one go. You want to be the mastermind behind the scenes? Then I'll arm wrestle with you. Li Yu secretly sneered. He stretched out his hand, and a stream of light whizzed through the sky. Clang! The Sky Splitter's sword vibrated and fell into Li Yu's hand. The Forbidden Zone has been pacified, the underworld has been destroyed, the mighty body has been eliminated, and the source of the dark turmoil has been completely eradicated. From now on, there will be no more dark turmoil. Li Yu stood in the air and announced loudly to all living beings in the world. The Venerable Emperor's divine power is unparalleled, the only one in all of history. The whole world celebrated, and the world praised him. Every corner of the world heard Li Yu's announcement. Everyone bowed in admiration, and the sound of praises rang out incessantly. Everyone, the dark turmoil has been eradicated. Are you interested in seeing the real road to immortality? Li Yu turned to look at the people around him with a smile. There really is a road to immortality? Of course. Celestial Venerable, please show me the way. When Emperor Qing, Yi Fan, Emperor Yin, and the others heard Li Yu's words, their eyes immediately lit up. They were extremely interested in the so-called true path to immortality. 2 or 3 people become immortals in one lifetime. Li Yu let out a sigh. Even though the path of immortality does lead to the immortal realm and immortality, it's not a good place. What does Sky Sovereign mean? Everyone was puzzled by Li Yu's words. Follow me, and you'll know. With a wave of his hand, Li Yu opened a portal and brought everyone to the flying deity starfield. Greetings, Ancestral Master. After everyone appeared, Zhou Yi, who was guarding the flying deity starfield, quickly went forward to greet them. Ancestral Master, nothing has happened in the flying immortal starfield. There doesn't seem to be anything unusual. Zhou Yi pointed at the flying immortal planet and reported to Li Yu. It's good that there's no movement. Li Yu nodded and gestured to the crowd. Follow me. A long rainbow streaked across the sky, and Li Yu led the crowd to land on the flying immortal planet. This was a huge, desolate planet. On the flying immortal planet, there were vast primeval forests everywhere. The mountains stood tall and majestic, the rivers surged endlessly, and the waterfalls fell like the Milky Way hanging upside down. Desolate beasts roared, and birds of prey soared into the sky. The entire flying immortal planet was magnificent and magnificent. In the center of the ancient continent of the flying immortal planet, there was a dark red land. This was an ancient sealed land. On this land, ancient monuments stood in great numbers, faintly emitting a vast and strange aura. This is the real path of immortality. Li Yu brought everyone to the ancient sealed land of the flying immortal planet, pointed at the vast dark red land in front of them, and said to everyone, Is it here? This is the real path of immortality? It looks like this place has been sealed by someone. Everyone looked at the dark red land in front of them curiously. They saw the ancient stone monuments and the ancient and mysterious words carved on the monuments, and they were shocked. It has indeed been sealed by someone. Liu looked at the sealed land and nodded with a smile. It will take many years for the seal to be opened. However, I can open in advance. Liu flicked his sleeves, and the intertwining yin and yang qi of black and white swept towards the sealed land. The principles were annihilated, and the divine inscriptions were destroyed. The sealing formation that enveloped this land was instantly destroyed by the yin and yang qi. Boom! There was a loud boom from the ground, and the huge stone monuments buried deep underground rushed out of the ground one after another like radishes being pulled out of the ground. Clatter! The sound of violent chains vibrating could be heard, as if the ancient demons sealed underground had awakened, broken the seal, and returned to the world. Boom! The last giant monument rushed out of the ground, and the runes flickered and shone brightly. The brilliant light shot into the sky like a pillar of light that connected the sky and the earth. Rumble! The ground was shaking violently. All the stone steels flew up into the sky. At this moment, the sealed land had undergone a tremendous change. It was as if a curtain had been lifted, and the true appearance of the sealed land was revealed in front of everyone. It was a vast territory. Majestic mountains rose and fell continuously, and 9 mountain ranges stretched for thousands of miles like 9 coiled dragons. There were also countless small mountain ranges in the surroundings. The thousands of mountain ranges were like thousands of swimming dragons. The land of the flying immortal, thousands of dragons rushing through the pass. Clouds and rosy clouds rose densely. The roars of demons vaguely rushed out from the clouds and shook the world. What happened? What's going on? Such a commotion alarmed countless people. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Streams of light pierced through the air, whistling as they rushed toward the sealed land. They were the cultivators living on the flying, immortal planet. At the front was an old man in a Taoist robe who was riding on a thick yellow light. In the yellow light, a giant tree towered into the clouds, and the sky was filled with green light. On the giant tree, a few white fruits that looked like babies could be vaguely seen. Beside this person, there was an old man with a simple appearance riding on a green bull. Beside the old man on the bull was a monk with drooping ears. He was standing on a lotus flower and holding a 9-ringed monk's staff. Zhen Yuanzi? Elderly lord? Tathagata? Liu looked at the 3 of them and nodded with a smile. The Preaching Shi refinement warriors had left Earth and stepped on the ancient path of the stars, finally arriving at the flying, immortal planet. These people were waiting for the path to immortality to open. Rong Chengshi greets the grand, celestial venerable. Loudon greets the grand, celestial venerable. Sakyamuni greets the grand, celestial venerable. The 3 of them landed in front of Liu and the others, cupping their fists and bowing to Liu. So it's you guys. Liu nodded at the 3 of them. You guys have been waiting on the flying immortal planet for so many years. Are you waiting for the path to immortality to open? You are right, Grand Celestial Venerable. We are indeed waiting for the path to immortality to open. Rong Chengshi, who is the legendary Zhen Yuanzi, bowed to Liu and answered, Well, since you guys are here, follow me. The 3 of them were from Earth in this world, so they could be considered to be related. Liu had to take care of them more or less. With a flick of his sleeve, Liu dispersed the dense clouds in front of him and led the group to the sealed land. Chapter 5:26. Roar. An earth-shattering roar came from the dense clouds in front of them. Demonic chi filled the sky, and a ferocious aura filled the world. Clang! Another sound of iron chains came, and there was a violent vibration as if a huge monster was breaking free from its shackles. Boom! An earth-shattering sound came. Dazzling light rushed out from the ground like a fountain, straight into the sky. A loud, muffled sound rang out from under the ground. Rubble flew through the air, and the giant monument exploded into dust that filled the air. The center of the sealed land exploded, and the ground shattered, and a huge passage appeared. The light rain in the passage scattered. There was a brilliant light in front of them. Roar! An earth-shattering roar came from the passageway, and the sound of shackles could be heard. A huge monster broke free from its shackles and rushed out from the ground with a loud rumble. Roar! A loud roar shook the world. Boom! A huge tremor broke the sky. A humongous snake rushed out from the ground. Its entire body was radiant like a brilliant river of stars. It's a transformation snake. Archaic species. Such an ancient existence can still exist in this world. Behind Liu, the crowd saw the huge snake and exclaimed, "This transformation snake is one of the D-Zone's backup plans." Liu looked at the huge transformation snake and shook his head with a smile. "Don't be fooled by how mighty you are now. The D-Zone has already placed a restriction on you. You're just a blood sacrifice." Boom! At this time, another explosion came from the depths of the ground. A Taoist with disheveled hair rushed out with a roar. This person had white hair and a beard, and his limbs were shackled. He raised his head and roared, and a destructive power came out. Under the erosion of this power, the mountains and rivers dried up, the plants withered, and all living things died. It was as if this person had absorbed all the vitality in the world. Heavenly Lord Nirvana? This is one of the 9 heavenly lords of the myth. Heavenly Lord Nirvana. After this destructive power came out, the crowd exclaimed. It was rumored that Heavenly Lord Nirvana had died long ago. Who would have thought that he was sealed on the road to immortality? Oof. It's another reckless fellow who doesn't care about the lives of all living beings. Liu frowned when he saw the aura spreading out and turning the area within 10,000 miles of the sealed land into a land of death. Disperse. With a flick of his sleeve, a black and white radiance swept out and extinguished the power of nirvanic extermination that the heavenly venerate of nirvanic extermination released. Ah! Liu's attack infuriated Heavenly Lord of Nirvana. He roared and charged at Liu. Kill! 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 Heavenly Venerate Nirvana roared furiously as his withered hands swiped at Liu's head. Is there something wrong with Heavenly Venerable Nirvana's brain? Liu frowned when he saw Heavenly Venerate Nirvana's reaction. Forget it. Since you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish. Liu reached out and grabbed, and a huge palm appeared out of thin air. The giant palm reached out and grabbed Heavenly Venerate Nirvana in its hand. You're also the target of the blood sacrifice. It's better for you to fall into my hands than to die without a corpse. A formless wave swept across, and Heavenly Venerate Nirvana disappeared instantly. He had been stored in Liu's resource warehouse. In the eyes of others, Liu just grabbed Heavenly Venerate Nirvana with his palm and disappeared. It was as if Liu had crushed Heavenly Venerate Nirvana to death, leaving nothing behind. SSS, Rong Changshi, and the other two took a deep breath. They had been frightened by Liu's move. Although they knew that the Grand Heavenly Venerate was extremely powerful, they hadn't expected him to be this powerful. This was simply unbelievable. As for the others, they weren't too surprised. The Grand Heavenly Venerate had swept through the life forbidden zone. Even the combined forces of 19 great emperors had been annihilated by a Heavenly Venerate. What was a mere Heavenly Venerate Nirvana worth? In fact, if Heavenly Venerate Nirvana's body hadn't been useful, Liu would have crushed him easily. Roar! Huashi was frightened by Liu's move and screamed. He dragged the iron chain and turned around to escape. Do you think you can escape? Since he had already made his move, he might as well catch them all in one fell swoop. Liu sneered and struck out with his palm again. Roar! Roar! The giant palm reached out and grabbed the snake's vital point. The huge Huashi roared and struggled, but he couldn't break free at all. Primordial rare beasts are still useful. With a wave of his hand, Liu put away the huge Huashi. 2 primordial supremes have been dealt with so easily by Liu. Buzz! Another strange sound came from the depths of the ground. Countless densely packed runes shone brightly as immortal light shot into the sky. In the depths of the sealed land, runes swirled and formed circle. It was like an immortal well with endless immortal chi gushing out. Thousands of rays of immortal light, thousands of auspicious chi and runes shone brilliantly. The vast atmosphere was shocking. Is this the path of immortalization? Seeing this immortal well-like circle, everyone was surprised and happy. Of course not. Liu shook his head, but his eyes were fixed on a mark next to the circle. It was a small pagoda-shaped mark. Heavenly Emperor Huang? Liu saw this mark and smiled slightly. This seal was left behind by Heavenly Emperor Huang. Later, it was used by Dizun. Boom! With a loud bang, the runes shattered, and the immortal well formed by the circle exploded. Light shone, and a huge creature rushed out of the light. This is a vermilion bird? The scorching flames were red. As the flames surged, a huge vermilion bird's head stretched out of the flames. Its eyes were fierce and monstrous. What was surprising was that on the vermilion bird's head, there was a 3-foot-long silver horn. Wah! A strange cry rang out. As the raging flames surged, a body as red as blood was revealed. It was a beast that was covered in crimson scales and shaped like a jackal or wolf. Behind the beast, there were 3 slender tails like a dragon's. The head of a bird, the body of a wolf, the tail of a dragon, and the horns on its head. Its scales were as red as blood, and it was extremely ferocious. The aura that originated from the primordial age made one's heart tremble. This was a supreme, and its vast aura was not inferior to that of a great emperor. It's not a vermilion bird. What is this thing? Seeing this strange beast, the group of great emperors actually couldn't recognize it. Even the ancient emperor and ancient emperor, who were the oldest living beings in the world, had never seen such strange and terrifying beasts. This is Zhongdiao. A smile appeared on Liu's face as he looked at the Zhongdiao. Heavenly Emperor Huang had sealed Zhongdiao. This would be very helpful for Liu to understand the past of the ancient chaos era. Seal, black and white light flowed, and the Tai Chi yin-yang fish pressed down on Zhongdiao. Wah! Zhongdiao roared. Just as it was about to attack, it saw Liu's figure and trembled. You do know me. Liu reached out and grabbed Zhongdiao, putting it into the resource vault. Why did Heavenly Emperor Huang seal Zhongdiao here? Liu also wanted to know the answer. Chapter 5:27. Boom! At that moment, a huge array was suddenly activated in the depths of the sealed land. A vast aura soared into the sky, and a phantom appeared in the array. This figure was majestic and imposing, looking down on all living beings. He stood in the void as if he was accepting the worship of all living beings and receiving congratulations from all directions. Is that the Tharch? The peerless Tharch who founded the ancient heavenly court. Everyone exclaimed when they saw this figure. The Tharch was a name derived from the Huang Tian Tharch and the mythical ninth celestial lord. This person called himself the Tharch, which meant that he was above the celestial Tharch and the celestial lord. Puffed. Are you trying to show off in front of me? Liu curled his lips and was very fed up with this. Even if you came in person, you wouldn't dare to show off in front of me. It's just an array imprint. Why are you putting on such airs? Who are you trying to show off to? Liu looked at the phantom with a mocking expression. With a flick of his finger, a speck of light swept past. Destroy. Annihilate. The phantom instantly dissipated, and the array instantly collapsed. The majestic figure and vast aura were like soap bubbles that could be popped with a poke. Let's go. With a flick of his finger, he crushed the array set up by the Tharch as easily as crushing a mosquito. The road ahead was smooth, and there were no more abnormalities. They stepped into the sealed land and walked along the path surrounded by immortal light. In front of them was a huge, immortal fortress. Countless immortals and demons roared, and killing intent filled the sky. Annihilate! Liu waved his hand, and a 5-colored brilliance swept across heaven and earth, rushing out like a raging tide. The immortal fortress was annihilated, and countless immortals and demons were annihilated. Everything was annihilated and turned into nothingness. Everything in front of them was swept away, and a smooth path led straight into the distance. The immortal fortress and the countless immortals and demons were all imprints of the laws. Liu Strike destroyed the laws of order and the Tao laws. The immortal fortress and immortals and demons could no longer appear. The power of an Empyrean is simply unimaginable. The people who followed Liu all knew that Liu's divine might was unparalleled. Personally feeling the power contained in Liu's attack, they were still shocked. These manifested imprints were the embodiment of the laws of heaven and earth. With everyone's strength, breaking through the immortal pass and opening up a path wasn't too difficult. However, after they broke through the immortal pass and immortal demons would continue to manifest. However, the situation now was different. Under Liu's strike, the immortal pass was destroyed, the immortal and devil disappeared, no longer able to appear. Shattering the laws of heaven and earth, collapsing the order of heaven and earth. This was a complete reversal of the great Tao of heaven and earth. Such power was simply unimaginable. Is this an immortal? Is this the power of immortals? Everyone's hearts were burning with passion. They were looking forward to the immortal path even more. In front of them was a wide road, and there were no obstructions along the way. Everyone followed behind Liu and kept moving forward. Not long after, a vast world appeared in front of them. An ancient stone tablet stood tall in front of them. It was ancient and ancient. This was an extremely ancient stone tablet. Some ancient words were engraved on the stone tablet. Those were words that belonged to the chaotic ancient era. Behind this tablet is the immortal realm. Although everyone couldn't understand these ancient words, the intent imprinted in them allowed everyone to understand the meaning. Heavenly Emperor Huang. Below the stone tablet, Liu saw a small pagoda-shaped imprint. Heavenly Emperor Huang has also been here? Could it be that this immortal ascension path was left behind by Heavenly Emperor Huang? Liu glanced at the people around him and nodded slightly. Let's go. The immortal realm is just ahead. After passing the stone tablet, everyone stepped onto a vast immortal land. Ancient trees towered into the sky, tall mountains stood tall, and great rivers surged. It was a vast world. Immortal clouds lingered between heaven and earth, and immortal light filled the air. Divine birds flew in the sky, and immortal beasts roared. Rich heaven and earth essence energy filled this world, making one feel comfortable and energetic. Is this the immortal realm? Everyone looked around excitedly, very curious about this world. This is not the immortal realm. This is just the connection between the immortal realm and the human realm. Liu scanned with his divine consciousness and discovered the essence of this world. In fact, this was not a vast world. Apart from the land with a radius of 10,000 miles, the other places were illusory images, not real heaven and earth. That is the real immortal path. Liu pointed at the heavenly gate in the distance and said to everyone, "Only through the heavenly gate can we enter the real immortal realm." Rainbow light flew across the sky. Everyone flew through the air and landed in front of the heavenly gate. This was a huge heavenly gate. On both sides were huge, square stone pillars like mountains, with heavy eaves hanging from the top. Together, they formed a huge and boundless gate. Inside the door, there was a layer of colorful light curtain that shrouded everything. Through the light screen, they could vaguely see a mysterious and vast world. Mountains towered there, reaching straight into the clouds, almost reaching the heavens, as tall as the heavens. The rivers there were vast and boundless. A river seemed to be a vast ocean. Ancient trees towered into the sky, and immortal vines were entangled. It was as if these ancient trees and ancient vines had grown for millions of years. The immortal realm. This is the immortal realm. A tree could grow for millions of years. Other than the immortal realm, where else could have such a miracle? Emperors could only live for 2 lifetimes, and the longest lifespan was only tens of thousands of years. However, a tree in the immortal realm could live for more than 1,000,000 years. Seeing this scene, everyone suddenly felt a sense of sadness in their hearts. So, we can't even compare to a tree in the immortal realm. Ding dang, a mighty heavenly sound rang out, and a string of ancient characters suddenly appeared on the colorful light screen. 2 or 3 people can become immortals in one lifetime. Only by sacrificing an Emperor Realm expert can this gate be opened. After the ancient words appeared, even if everyone couldn't recognize these words, they could sense the will engraved in the words. They actually need to sacrifice an emperor? Seeing this sentence, everyone's expression changed drastically. The heavenly gate could only be opened by sacrificing. This path didn't look like the immortal path at all. Instead, it looked more like the demonic path. The so-called sacrifice of an Emperor Realm expert is actually the heavenly gate needs to gather power to pass through the void. Liu glanced at the heavenly gate. Divine light flowed in his eyes, and his soul continuously analyzed the array engraved on the heavenly gate. Soon, he understood what the so-called sacrifice meant. The heavenly gate connects to the immortal realm. However, the heaven and earth essence chi in this world is not enough. The heavenly gate doesn't have enough power to connect to the immortal realm. Therefore, they can only sacrifice an Emperor Realm expert to absorb their power and open a passage to the immortal realm. I see. Hearing Liu's explanation, everyone heaved a sigh of relief. As for the 2 or 3 people can become immortals in one lifetime, it's also for the same reason. Even if an Emperor Realm expert is sacrificed, the heavenly gate can only send 2 or 3 people into the immortal realm at most. Liu looked at everyone with a smile. With me here, activating the heavenly gate and opening the immortal realm, there's no need to sacrifice. Liu stepped in front of the heavenly gate and pressed his hand. Vast and boundless power surged out and suddenly poured into the array of the heavenly gate. Clang! The sound of the heavens was mighty, and celestial light was like rain. The immortal gate slowly opened, and the vast and mysterious immortal realm appeared in front of everyone. The heavenly gate is open. Now, who wants to become an immortal? Chapter 528. Thank you, Celestial Master, for your mercy. Rong Chengshi, Old Dan, and Buddha bowed to Liu. Celestial Master, we can never repay your kindness. Rong Chengshi stretched out his hand, and a huge ginseng fruit tree turned into a 3-foot small tree. He held in his hand and presented it to Liu. Celestial Master, please accept my kindness. Haha, you are so considerate. Liu smiled and stretched out his hand to take the ginseng fruit tree. Since you're so kind, I'll accept it. This ginseng fruit tree was also an immortal herb. Although Liu had no use for it, he could plant it in the garden of the immortal mansion and eat it as a fruit in the future. Celestial Master, we are so grateful for your kindness. We will never forget it. The 3 of them bowed respectfully to Liu and then stepped into the gate of heaven. Brilliant flowing light lingered out, and the laws of the immortal realm poured into the 3 of them, constantly washing the foundation of the Tao in their bodies. Celestial Master, this is seeing their cultivation foundation being washed by the immortal light. It seemed that all their cultivation was going to be abolished. Rong Chengshi and the other 2 were shocked and quickly asked Liu. Don't panic, Liu explained with a smile. The laws of heaven and earth in the immortal realm are different from those in the human world. To enter the immortal realm, you must transform your cultivation to conform to the laws of the immortal realm. I see. Hearing Liu's explanation, the 3 of them were relieved and let the immortal light wash the Tao in their bodies. Soon after, the washing was finished, and a brilliant light rushed up. The 3 of them passed through the light curtain and entered the vast and mysterious immortal realm. Celestial Master, we will never forget your kindness. Through the light curtain, the 3 of them bowed respectfully to Liu again. They have become immortals. They have become immortals. Through the light curtain, everyone saw the 3 of them burst out with immortal light, like thousands of wings of light stretching out, brilliant and brilliant. They have become immortals. They have really become immortals. Now that there was an example of becoming immortals, the others were even more overjoyed. Celestial Venerable, we don't have much time left. Celestial Venerable, please grant me the opportunity to become an immortal. The Azure Emperor, the Flame Emperor, and the Yellow Emperor bowed before Liu. Emperor Yin and Emperor Huang were sentient beings born from the bodies of the Void Emperor and the Eternal Universe Emperor. Thousands of years had passed since the birth of the Emperor Yin and Emperor Huang on Earth. Their lifespan of 10,000 years was about to come to an end. The two of them did not have much time left. As for the Azure Emperor, he had nearly died in the ancient desolate tower. Now that he had a chance to become an immortal, he naturally would not let it go. Go! Liu smiled and waved his hand. Many thanks, Sky Sovereign. The Azure the Arch bowed and offered up the ancient desolate tower in his hands. I'm going to the Celestial Realm, so I won't be able to use the ancient desolate tower. Just let it be in the hands of the Heavenly Venerable. The desolate tower belongs to Heavenly Emperor Huang. I do have a use for it. Liu took the ancient desolate tower and stored it in the resource vault. Empyrean, the Eternal Universe Furnace, and the Void Mirror do not belong to us. Sky Sovereign, please return it for us. Emperor Yin and Emperor Huang bowed and handed the Void Mirror and the Eternal Universe Furnace to Liu. Sky Sovereign, we're going. Emperor Qing and Emperor Yin and Emperor Huang walked into the gate of heaven. Immortal light washed over them, and the Tao laws transformed. A moment later, the three of them passed through the light screen and arrived at the immortal domain. The six of them had already ascended the gate of heaven and entered the immortal domain. Among the remaining people, Zhang Xian, Wang Shu, and the other ancient emperors were all Liu's subordinates. Without Liu's permission, they naturally wouldn't climb the gate of heaven and enter the immortal domain. The only ones left were Zhou, Yi, and Yifan. Ancestral Master, can we also enter the immortal domain? That's right, Sky Sovereign, can we also enter the immortal domain? The two of them looked at Liu eagerly, as if they wanted to reach the heavens in a single step and enter the immortal domain. No way. Before Liu could reply, he heard a loud shout. A white-robed figure flew over from the path of immortal ascension and blocked in front of Yifan. You, seeing the woman in white standing in front of him, Yifan's entire body trembled as he was dumbstruck. Isn't this the ruthless great emperor? Why did she stop me from entering the immortal domain? I have no enmity with her, and I have nothing to do with her. Why is this? Yifan was confused. He didn't know what had happened. When he looked at Vicious, he had a strange feeling in his heart, as if this person was very familiar and very amiable. Little Nan Nan. Inexplicably, Yifan felt the aura of Little Nan Nan from Ruthless. This caused Yifan's expression to change greatly, and his heart to become nervous. Could it be that something had happened to Little Nan Nan? You really came. Liu smiled and glanced at the ruthless man. 9 lives combined into one. You have already taken the last step. You don't plan to wait any longer? Humph. Ruthless glared at Liu with an ice-cold expression. He will walk his own path to immortality. You don't need to worry about him. Huh. Liu smiled and shook his head. Of course I don't care. It's enough for you to take care of it. Do you still need me to take care of it? Sky Sovereign, Great Emperor, what exactly is going on? From the conversation between the two, Yifan could tell that Ruthless didn't seem to have any ill intentions. Regarding this, Yifan was even more puzzled. Ask her. Liu smiled and pointed at Ruthless. Great Emperor. Yifan turned around and looked at Ruthless, his face full of doubt. Ruthless frowned. He reached out his hand and pressed it between his eyebrows. A ray of light shot out, and as the light lingered, the figure of Little Nan appeared in front of Yifan. Big brother, don't go. Don't leave Little Nan. After Little Nan appeared, her eyes were filled with tears as she hugged Yifan's arm and refused to let go. Yifan was dumbstruck. Little Nan? Ruthless Great Emperor? With Yi Fan's current cultivation and knowledge, he could naturally tell the relationship between Little Nan Nan and Ruthless. Little Nan Nan was the clone of Ruthless Great Emperor. Why did she wander about all alone? Why did the ruthless man let Little Nan Nan out to suffer? Great Emperor, Little Nan Nan, why are you doing this? Yi Fan couldn't understand why. With ruthless strength, he would send one of his clones out to suffer. I'll wait for you to come back. Ruthless took a deep look at Yi Fan and replied expressionlessly, Wait, I'm back. Yi Fan's entire body trembled as he opened his mouth wide, unable to close it for a long time. Ruthless was still looking at Yi Fan, and a few scenes suddenly appeared in his clear eyes. Seeing these scenes, Yi Fan's heart trembled. It was a little girl, dressed in tattered clothes with patches on them. Her face was dirty and dark, but her big eyes were as clear as water. The little girl had no parents and lived with a young man. Although they were poor, they were very happy and happy. The grimace mask was their only toy. There was no luxurious jewelry. In order to make the little girl happy, the young man made a ring for her out of bronze. Although it was very rough, the little girl treated it as a treasure. Later, the young man was discovered to be a cultivation genius and was forcefully taken away. The little girl cried and begged. The group of people finally agreed to let her send them off. In front of the rainbow altar, farewell is farewell. The little girl cried out in grief and fell to the ground. Her small hands were covered in bloodstains. Later, a great emperor rose to power, intimidating the ancient times. She only had a mortal body and no talent. Her aptitude was extremely poor, but she defied the heavens and changed her fate. She rose to power and became a great emperor of a generation, shaking the world. And then, she reincarnated one life after another, waiting for another life after another. Not to become an immortal, but to wait for your return in the mortal world. Yi Fan's entire body trembled because he discovered that the young man who was taken away, the young man who died, was exactly the same as him. Chapter 529. Sky Sovereign, what exactly is going on? Li Fanxian already had a faint guess in his heart, but he still found it hard to believe. Was there really a reincarnation cycle? Am I really the brother of a ruthless person? Was he really the young man who had died hundreds of thousands of years ago? However, Yi Fan firmly believed that he was himself, not someone else. Didn't you already see it? Leafly, you smiled and nodded. There are no two flowers that are exactly the same in this world. If it's the same, how can there be no reason? Li Fanxian lowered his head to look at the little Nan Nan beside him, then looked at the silent, ruthless person beside him and slightly frowned. Yi Fan, who only cultivated in this life, faintly felt a sense of rejection towards this so-called previous life. All right, there's no need to be conflicted. Li Yu smiled and shook his head. The future has already become smoke. Right now, little Nan Nan is your little sister. That's enough. Yes, little Nan Nan is my little sister. Li Fanxian also understood. He didn't need to care about his previous life. He just needed to care about this life. Li Fanxian smiled, bent down, and picked up the little Nan Nan, placing her on his shoulder. Leaf the Empress, named Ruthless, no longer needed her brother. However, little Nan Nan needed her brother. That was enough. For a ruthless person, this was enough. In his previous life, he couldn't live a happy life with his brother. In this life, he continued to live as a little Nan Nan. Hundreds of thousands of years of waiting had finally come to fruition. That was enough. Even with the Empress's ability, she could go back in time and reverse time. However, she couldn't change that end. Leaf, if her brother didn't die, then that little girl wouldn't have any obsession. She wouldn't have been able to rise up in adversity and reach the peak of the world. Leaf, if he couldn't reach the peak, he wouldn't be able to reverse time and space. This was the paradox of time. She couldn't change it, and she didn't need to. The result was already very good. Ancestral Master, why didn't the Emperor allow Yi Fan to enter the immortal domain? Is there a problem with that? At this time, seeing the Empress appear to stop Yi Fan from entering the immortal domain, Zhou Yi was baffled and hurriedly asked Li Yu. The Empress has high hopes for Yi Fan. Li Yu looked at everyone and explained, there are two ways to become an immortal. One was naturally to ascend the heavenly gate, enter the celestial realm, and attain immortality. The other one, Li Yu pointed at the Empress and then at himself. The other rule is for us to be like this. Without entering the celestial realm, he would use his own strength to condense the source and establish his own foundation for longevity. This is the immortal of the mortal world. The great emperor is already an immortal. Yi Fan and Zhou Yi looked at Vicious with faces full of shock. Zhang Xian, Wang Shu, and the other four ancient emperors were also shocked. Not to become an immortal, but if I don't become an immortal, how can I wait for that person to return? Even if she didn't become an immortal, she has already become one. Li Yu couldn't help but admire Vicious, heaven-defying actions. Li Yu had such good conditions, but he still racked his brains and tried his best to fuse the three treasures of essence, energy, and soul into one and become immortal. Vicious conditions were far worse than Li Yu's. Although he had spent hundreds of thousands of years, becoming an immortal under such conditions was truly commendable. Sky Sovereign, is there any difference between these two paths? Wang Shu raised his head and looked at Li Yu, asking curiously. Of course there's a difference. Li Yu smiled and explained to everyone, using the laws of the immortal domain to become an immortal. Although he could live forever, the possibility of him going any further in the future was very low. However, becoming an immortal in the mortal world was different. Everything originated from himself, and his future was limitless. Then, becoming an immortal in the mortal world should be very difficult, right? Zhou Yi glanced at the silent Emperor Ruthless. Ancestral Master, becoming an immortal in the mortal world. I'm afraid it's not that easy to do, right? Of course, Li Yu nodded. Becoming an immortal in the mortal world is as difficult as ascending to the heavens. This was a heaven-defying act. Without great perseverance, great wisdom, and great courage, one cannot do it. Li Yu glanced at everyone and smiled. Actually, if you want to live forever, you don't have to enter the immortal domain. Amidst everyone's shock, Li Yu reached out and grabbed at the light screen of the heavenly gate. His palm pierced through the light screen as if it had pierced through time and space, reaching into the immortal domain. Through the light screen, everyone saw Li Yu's hand reach out and grab in the immortal domain. A majestic mountain that pierced through the clouds as if it was as tall as the heavens was pulled out of the ground by Li Yu's grab. Seal! A black and white light flashed, and the huge and boundless mountain was sealed into a crystal, which Li Yu kept into the resource vault. System, break down the mountain of the immortal domain and refine the longevity substance. Pulling out his hand from the light screen of the heavenly gate, Li Yu gave the system an order in his mind to break down the mountain of the immortal domain and refine the longevity substance that existed in the immortal domain. A tree in the immortal domain could live for 1,000,000 years. There were countless ancient trees in this mountain, as well as the dragon veins of the earth, which contained a lot of longevity substances. The so-called longevity substance is actually a kind of life origin. With a roll of the five-colored light, the mountain of the immortal domain was instantly broken down. A ball of light that was as heavy as mercury and as crystalline as glass appeared in the resource vault. After the system scan, Li Yu discovered that this so-called longevity substance was a rich and pure life origin. It was somewhat similar to the life force nurtured in the elixir of immortality, but it was purer and richer. No wonder the elixir of immortality could allow the great emperor to live another life. It turns out that the life force contained in the elixir of immortality is similar to the longevity substance in the immortal domain. Stretching out his hand, Li Yu's hand lit up with a ball of light. The light was as clear as glass, and the life force was vast and majestic. Just smelling this aura was enough to raise one's spirit and make one feel refreshed. This is the longevity substance of the immortal domain. The reason why immortals are immortal and live forever comes from this. Liu displayed this biomass in front of everyone, and a smile appeared on his face. Celestial Venerable is indeed resourceful. Seeing the commotion caused by Liu, everyone felt a wave of shock in their hearts. He doesn't need this. Ruthless spoke out once again, not allowing Yi Fan to obtain these longevity substances. Looking at the longevity substance in Liu's hand, a trace of shock appeared on Ruthless' cold face. He was also somewhat surprised by Liu's methods. He doesn't need it, but the others do. Liu turned his head to look at the four ancient emperors, Zhang Xian and Qilin. You don't have much lifespan left, so you can use this thing. Zhang Xian, the ancient Qilin Emperor, the ancient Black Tortoise Emperor, the Azure Sun Emperor, and the Purple Cloud Emperor were all in their later years. They didn't have long to live, so it was impossible for them to become worldly immortals. Since Liu had taken them into his hands, he naturally couldn't let them die so easily. Thank you, Sky Sovereign. The five of them were about to reach the end of their lifespans, and the mortal immortals did not dare to have any extravagant hopes. At this moment, they were naturally overjoyed to be able to obtain the foundation of longevity bestowed by Liu. Prepare to absorb the longevity substance. With a flick of his finger, 5 balls of light shot out from his hand and entered the bodies of the 5 people. Previous chapter, next chapter, boom. A monstrous divine radiance erupted. 5 brilliant pillars of light soared into the sky. Immortal light was like rain, colorful and colorful. Within this ray of light, the 5 of them underwent a complete transformation. His white hair became pitch black and thick, and his wrinkled skin became sparkling and translucent like jade. His vast and mighty chi and blood were like true dragons as they rushed out from the top of his head, shaking the void. When the light faded, 5 young men who looked to be less than 20 years old stood tall and straight. Their boundless vitality was as vast as the ocean. That's right. You won't die until the longevity substance is exhausted. Living for 700,000 to 800,000 years won't be a problem. Liu glanced at the 5 of them and nodded with a smile. Thank you, Sky Sovereign, for your generous gift. The 5 of them kowtowed to the ground in gratitude. 700,000 years. Zhou Yi, Yi Fan, and Wang Shu were all shocked. The Sky Sovereign's heaven-defying method of changing one's fate was simply too shocking. Give me some. Seeing this effect, even Ruthless couldn't sit still. She really wanted Yi Fan to become an immortal in the mortal world. However, even with the help of Ruthless, there was no way to guarantee that Yi Fan would succeed. If it didn't succeed, the longevity substance would come in handy. All right, I'll give you one. I hope you won't need it one day. Liu handed a ball of light to Ruthless. Using the longevity substance was equivalent to cutting off the possibility of becoming an immortal in the mortal world. It would be best if he didn't use this thing. Chapter 530. Sky Sovereign, can you give me some more? Yi Fan suddenly opened his mouth and asked Liu for the longevity substance. This caused Ruthless to be extremely surprised, and his brows tightly knitted together. Ugh, I'm not using it for myself. Yi Fan felt uneasy being stared at by Ruthless, so he hurriedly explained. Hearing Yi Fan's words, Ruthless withdrew his gaze. Yi Fan also heaved a sigh of relief. Sky Sovereign, Senior Guy Jiuyo, Senior Fighting Buddha, Senior Crazy Old Man, and Senior Human Demon Great Sage. They don't have much lifespan left. Sky Sovereign is merciful. Can you? After saying a few names in a row, even Yi Fan himself felt a little embarrassed. Forget it. These people are all heroes of the region. I have also heard of their deeds. It's a pity that a hero is past his prime. Liu nodded his head and took out a jade box. He sealed a few balls of longevity material inside the jade box and handed it to Yi Fan. Here you go. However, don't use it yourself. I don't want to fight with your sister. Thank you, Sky Sovereign. Yifan took the jade box and bowed towards Liu. Liu's teasing of little sister made Yifan feel a little helpless. Even Ruthless rolled his eyes. Just in time, I have something for you to do. After saying that, Liu took out an ancient list that shone with a golden light from the resource warehouse and handed it to Yifan. This is the investiture of the gods left behind by Emperor Wushi. There was a map inside, marked with some special locations. After you find these locations, bury these talismans. As he said that, Liu handed Yifan a stack of talismans. Yes, sir. Yifan received the talisman and the investiture of the gods, bowing as he accepted the order. The map and the investiture of the gods involved the sovereign's backup plan. In order to refine the entire universe, the sovereign emperor had set up a vast and boundless array countless years ago. After Emperor Wushi noticed it, he recorded the key nodes of this array in the investiture of the gods. Emperor Wushi had originally planned to destroy this formation, but he didn't expect to discover the existence of the immortal emperor. Being pestered by the immortal Sky Emperor, no beginning could not do anything else. He had no choice but to release the investiture of the gods and leave it for future generations to discover the secrets within. Since Liu wanted to wrestle with the venerable emperor, he naturally wouldn't ignore the venerable emperor's array. Fan Xian wanted to ask for the longevity material for Guy Jiuyo and the others, so Liu took this opportunity to give him a job. Brother, let's go home. Little Nan Nan hugged Yifan's arm, her bright eyes wide open as she looked at Yifan expectantly. Sky Sovereign, we'll take our leave first. There was no need to enter the immortal domain. The matter had already been settled, so Yifan didn't want to stay any longer. Take this back with you. Liu handed the Eternal Universe Furnace and the Void Mirror to Yifan. Since Fan Xian was the son-in-law of the Ji clan and also had a close relationship with the divine king Jiang Taishu, it was suitable for him to bring these two emperor weapons back to the Northern Dipper. Yes, the three of them walked out of the Immortal Ascension Road and returned to the Big Dipper Beidou. Big Dipper Beidou, let's leave as well. Liu brought Zhou, Yi, and the others and left the Immortal Ascension Road, returning to the flying immortal planet. With a wave of his hand, he closed the Immortal Ascension Road and sealed it again. The formation on the gate of heaven absorbs the essence of heaven and earth and accumulates energy, waiting for the next time it opens. The next time it opens, it will be 1,000,000 years later. To rely on absorbing the essence of heaven and earth, break through the void, and connect to the immortal domain, it would be impossible to do so without accumulating energy for 1,000,000 years. No wonder becoming an immortal was so difficult. At this time, Liu also knew the reason why the desolate heaven and earth had sealed Zhongjiao. Heavenly Emperor Huang had only left behind a sacrificial object to open the gate of heaven for his descendants. However, the gift he had left behind for his descendants had been used by the emperor to sacrifice himself and reconstruct the Green Cauldron. However, before the sovereign's plan could even be carried out, it was crushed by Liu. The environment of the flying immortal planet is not bad. Let's stay here for the time being. Liu waved his hand and sent the eternal immortal mansion into a desolate mountain on the flying immortal planet, bringing everyone to the immortal mansion. Ancestral Master, do you also want me to become an immortal in the secular world? When Liu sat down in the main hall of the immortal mansion, Zhou Yi, who had been holding back his heart for a long time, finally found an opportunity to ask, "You're not even a great emperor, so what immortal in the secular world?" Liu shook his head. Don't bite off more than you can chew. The path of cultivation is one step at a time. Only by taking every step right and steadily can you go far. Thank you for your teachings, Ancestral Master. Hearing Liu's words, Zhou Yi blushed and hurriedly bowed to accept the teachings. The struggle of the Emperor Road and the competition of geniuses is your path. Only by standing out in the competition, taking the lead, and being invincible in the world can you ascend to the position of a great emperor. Liu smiled at Zhou Yi. I have wiped out the source of darkness and chaos, but I will not intervene in the struggle of the Emperor Road and the competition of geniuses. If you want to become an emperor, you have to fight your way up. Disciple understands. Zhou, he stood up straight with high fighting spirit. The path of the great emperor is under my own feet. Back then, ancestral master had taught me long ago, and disciple has always remembered it in my heart. Zhou, he bowed to Liu. Ancestral master, the struggle of the emperor road is to advance and not retreat. Disciple plans to fight again on the ancient path of the starry sky, Imperial Pass, and compete with the heroes of the world. I am very relieved that you have such ambition. Go. Liu smiled and nodded, sending Zhou Yi out. Liu had already wiped out the life forbidden zone, destroyed the underworld, and sealed the 3 great success overlord bodies. However, in addition to these sources of darkness and chaos, there were still many strong enemies in front of Zhou Yi. For example, the Lord of the Divine Court, who Liu had taken away the blue gold pagoda, as well as the undying Heavenly Empress and the 8 great divine generals. These people were all whetstones on Zhou Yi's path forward. Liu thought so. That was what Vicious thought too. Vicious was ruthless to himself and also to his brother Yifan. In another timeline, in order to quell the chaos and the darkness, Yifan's body and soul were both destroyed. If it weren't for little Nan Nan's tears that allowed him to be reborn from a drop of blood, it would be a problem for Yifan to survive. This could already be considered to have died once. Sky Sovereign, this subordinate would like to return to the Big Dipper. At this time, the ancient Qilin Emperor stepped forward and asked for Li from Liu. Although Liu had taken in a few ancient emperors as his subordinates, he did not erase their memories. Sky Sovereign, this subordinate also wants to go back and take a look. Large Success, Saint Badi Zhang Xian, Azure Sun Emperor, and Purple Firmament Emperor also stepped forward to ask for Li from Liu. The ancient emperor was sealed within the immortal origin and had not appeared for countless years. He did not even know if the descendants of his family were still alive. At this moment, the few of them had obtained the longevity substance. Their lives were long, and they could be considered to have lived for a long time. It was normal for him to want to return to his old haunt to take a look. Go. You can stay in the old haunt for a long time. I will summon you when I have something to do. Thank you, Sky Sovereign. The 4 of them happily thanked him and left. What about you? Do you also want to return to the Jade Lake? Only Wang Shu and Liu were left in the immortal abode. Liu smiled as he looked at Wang Shu and asked. Wang Shu was born and raised by the earth. Although he was born in the Jade Lake was not my family. Wang Shu is willing to serve the Sky Sovereign, and I hope that the Sky Sovereign will take me in. Wang Shu bowed towards Liu. In that case, you can stay in the immortal abode. Liu nodded. You are a spirit born from the Guanghan White Jade, and are born with the ability to control the power of ice. You can cultivate the ice spirit holy light. Liu waved his hand and sent out a ball of light. He passed the ice spirit holy light that Wang Yu had created in the other world to Wang Shu. Thank you, Sky Sovereign, for your gift. Wang Shu bowed and then took her leave. She settled down in the side chamber and began to cultivate the ice spirit holy light. Now that I have some free time, I have to sort out my gains. Liu had earned a lot from the successive expeditions, and it was time to check his gains. Chapter 531. Just the Imperial weapons alone are a lot. Liu opened the resource vault and saw the rewards inside. Even though he already cared about external items, he was still pleasantly surprised by the huge rewards. Liu had tricked 12 ancient emperors on the path to immortality in the forbidden land of remote antiquity. Other than the Qilin, Black Tortoise, Green Sun, Purple Firmament, and the 4 great emperors that had already been decomposed, there were still 4 ancient emperors and 8 imperial weapons left. After sweeping the reincarnation sea, he had obtained the carefree Heavenly Venerable and a pristine jade bottle. After sweeping the immortal mausoleum, he had obtained 2 ancient emperors, the 5 elements ancient umbrella, the azure light hairpin, and 2 imperial weapons. The 4 forbidden lands had joined forces to besiege Liu, but Liu had suppressed 19 great emperors in one fell swoop. Moreover, he had even captured the 4 forbidden lands. After the underworld was destroyed, there were 4 ancient emperors. Not only did they obtain imperial weapons, but they also obtained the underworld treasure wheel. 3 great success overlord bodies, plus the flying immortal stars Huaxi, Zhongjiao, and Nirvana Heavenly Venerable. He had sent Rong Chengshi to the immortal domain and obtained the ginseng fruit tree. The Azure Emperor had also given him the ancient desolate tower. So far, there are 3 immortal treasures: the Kunlun immortal bell, the ancient desolate tower, and the underworld treasure wheel. With a wave of his hand, the 3 immortal treasures floated around Liu. They were glowing brightly with immortal light. Including my sky splitter sword and the main world's net, I have 5 immortal treasures now. Treasures at the immortal artifact level were extraordinary. Liu had 5 immortal artifacts in his possession, which could be considered as rich. I also obtained a lot of immortal herbs. The immortal peach herb from the ruins of God, the enlightenment ancient tea tree, the black tortoise immortal herb, and the ginseng fruit tree. The main world also planted the Bodhi tree and the Qilin immortal herb. I already have 6 immortal herbs. To Liu, the immortal herbs were just green plants in the garden of the immortal residence. However, to be able to obtain these things, it could be considered a great harvest. The 4 forbidden lands themselves are also a big gain. There's also the Meru Mountain left behind by the Amiba Great Emperor. These things are good for the development of the shopping mall space. Apart from Sky Burial Island, which Liu wanted to use to build a stronghold in the mall, the other 3 life forbidden zones in Mount Meru could all be integrated into the mall space, adding to the foundation of the mall space. I definitely need to go to the chaotic ancient era. Going back in time and going against the flow, he had to leave behind an obvious coordinate. It's also necessary to set up a shopping mall. The chaotic ancient era, the era where Heavenly Emperor Huang lived. The desolate wasteland was rich in all kinds of resources. It was worth a trip. More importantly, Liu's cultivation in the future required him to analyze the precepts of heaven and earth of various worlds. He needed to integrate the precepts of heaven and earth of countless worlds before finally tracing back to the origin of heaven and earth and achieving primeval. Therefore, it was necessary to analyze the laws of heaven and earth from the primordial era. All that's left is the monarch weapon. Liu nodded with a smile when he saw the huge pile of monarch weapons in the warehouse. Not counting the immortal extermination formation, there are already 30 imperial weapons. Liu glanced at the resource warehouse and discovered that other than the Qilin, Black Tortoise, and the other 3's monarch weapons, there were still 30 monarch weapons. The spirit of the underworld weapon doesn't have any monarch weapon, only the underworld weapon treasure wheel. However, the hell-suppressing Emperor's halberd and shield are both monarch weapons. Just nice, I have 30 of them. Looking at the monarch weapons in the resource warehouse and his own equipment, Liu smiled. I'm already a worldly immortal, but most of my equipment is only sacred grade. It doesn't fit my status at all. With these 30 monarch weapons, Liu is extremely well off. He was fully equipped to upgrade his equipment. White robe, golden crown, jade belt, and boots. They're all sacred grade. It's time to upgrade them. Liu glanced at the resource warehouse and quickly found the suitable materials for the upgrade. The Heavenly Lord of Nirvana's monarch weapon is a purple ribbon holy robe. It's just right. Taking out the purple ribbon holy robe and taking off his white robe, Liu's hand shone brightly. With a swipe of the Taiji Yin-Yang fish, the Heavenly Lord of Nirvana's imprint on the purple ribbon holy robe was instantly destroyed. With my current strength, refining a monarch weapon isn't difficult at all. 5-colored light swirled in his hand as Xianhuang Qi surged out and enveloped the white robe and the purple ribbon holy robe. Fuse. Genesis Xianhuang Qi, the connate material origin. Under the cleansing of the Xianhuang Qi, the sacred grade white robe and the purple ribbon holy robe instantly fused into one, turning into an elegant white robe. Compared to the sacred grade white robe from before, This newly refined white robe was more exquisite and elegant. Its defensive power was stronger, and the power it contained was also more majestic. Not bad. With a wave of his hand, the elegant white robe fell into his hand. Liu put it on again. With a faint, immortal light and fluttering sleeves, the new white robe was even more fitting and comfortable. Liu was very satisfied. I'll have to refine the golden crown too. Liu's golden crown was refined from the Pan Huang sacred sword. It contained the intent imprints of righteousness, benevolence, wisdom, and courage. Although Liu no longer needed to rely on this item to show off, there was no need to purposely erase this aura. Since that is the case, I'll add in benevolence, delivering all living beings. With a wave of his hand, Liu took out the Amitabha Emperor's demon subduing pestle. A demon subduing pestle. I remember that I made one for Xiao Feng back then. When Liu saw the demon subduing pestle before him, he recalled the one in Xiao Feng's hand and could not help smiling. The Amitabha Emperor's demon subduing pestle was not like the Vajra demon subduing pestle in Xiao Feng's hand. It did not look ferocious. Instead, it was a 2-meter-long crystalline Dharma artifact with 2 lotus-shaped ends. I can use it to refine the golden crown. Although Liu was not very interested in benevolence, delivering all living beings, this was the only thing that was compatible with the golden crown's aura. Xiaochen reached out and took off the golden crown. 5-colored light surged out, encasing the demon subduing pestle and the golden crown. Refine. With a sweep of the profound yellow qi, the demon subduing pestle and the golden crown merged into one, forming a new golden crown. The newly refined golden crown was no longer as dazzling with golden light as before. Instead, its radiance was restrained. It was elegant and exquisite, but not ostentatious. It was low-key and luxurious. Although it was not extravagant, it had deep meaning. At Liu's current level, there was no need for external items to set off his identity. No matter how tattered his clothes were, he would still be glorious and majestic, shining through the ages. Hence, low-key and luxurious suited Liu's current identity and temperament. When Xiao Chun put the golden crown back on his head, it was exquisite and restrained. It also had a tranquil and auspicious energy that calmed the mind. Is this the result of the Buddhist sect's wish power? Although Liu had no use for this, it was not a bad thing to have this energy. Next is the jade belt and boots. Liu took out 2 imperial weapons from the resource storage. One was a white jade chime. This was an imperial weapon refined from moon white jade. It was the weapon of an ancient emperor of Sky Burial Island. Liu's jade belt was originally refined from the white dragon shell and had its own icy power. It was very compatible with this jade chime refined from moon white jade. As for the boots, Liu took out a flag. This was an imperial weapon refined by an ancient emperor of origin ancient mine, Green Dragon. It had the power to control the wind. Liu's boots were refined from the wind dragon flag and were very compatible with this wind-resisting flag. With a flash of 5-colored light, the jade belt and boots were completed. At this point, the golden crown on Liu's head, the white robe on his body, the jade belt on his waist, and the boots on his feet had all been upgraded to the imperial weapon level. The Sky Splitter and Kunlun immortal bell hung on his waist, the desolate tower in his hand, and the nether artifact will hung behind his head. The luxurious equipment on Liu's body was beyond imagination. Some readers responded to the question of the longevity substance. Let me explain. The foundation of the longevity substance that one refined is one's own body. One can become immortal. The longevity substance from the outside world is the same as the laws of the immortal domain. If it is not one's own foundation, it is impossible to become immortal. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.